Luton on Friday. 19-year-old Micah Urquhart was found in Hastings Street by a member of the public. He'd been stabbed in the chest and later died at the scene. Bedfordshire Police are continuing to appeal for witnesses. A group of MPs is warning that the cost of a multi-billion-pound computer system for the NHS are continuing to rise 2 years after the government announced it was scrapping the programme. The project's already cost the taxpayer nearly £10 billion so far. Thames Valley Police are warning of a new phone scam which has already claimed 17 victims in Milton Keynes. Tony Fisher has the details.
Courier fraud, as it's known, is often targeted at the elderly and vulnerable. The victim is tricked into revealing their bank details over the phone before their card is then collected by a courier. In other cases, victims are conned into cutting their cards in half before posting them to the fraudster, who simply tapes the card back together. Police want those with elderly relatives or neighbours to be on the lookout.
Sending a child to boarding school can be more cost-effective than shuttling children to many different sports and activities, at least according to a leading headmaster from Hertfordshire. Ray McGovern from St George's School in Harpenden says that boarding schools are not elitist and insists they can be a good option for working parents, single-parent families and people living in rural areas. There's concern this morning that the number of dogs abandoned by their owners may be on the increase. While national figures from the Dogs Trust suggest the number of stray dogs they take in is going down, it would seem that's not the picture in Bedfordshire. Julie Shelton owns Appledown Kennels in Eaton Bray.
It is awful. This is the busiest we have ever known it. I've spoken to other people in rescue kennels and stray kennels and they're all saying the same. We have never ever had as many dogs as this.
Sport now, and in the Championship last night, a late penalty gave Watford a 2-1 win over Doncaster. Meanwhile, Luton Town were 3-0 winners at home to Dartford in the conference. The weather, sunshine with the chance of an isolated shower and a top temperature of 16 degrees Celsius. That's 61 Fahrenheit. Get the latest news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3counties.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Oh, excuse me, there's a frog in my throat. He's gone now. Have you been up all night playing Grand Theft Auto 5? Yes, target audience. I may have a little indulgence later on this evening. I may not, we'll see. Lots coming up on the show today, including police chiefs are calling for privately run drunk tanks to be considered to help tackle alcohol-fuelled disorder. Is that a good idea or a waste of money? Kennels in Beds, Herts and Bucks are full of strays, but why do people abandon their dogs? And this morning, Justin Dealey is banging on about films. Justin?
Banging on about films. Morning, Lisa. Yeah, the top 10 films have been named that we wished we'd seen on the big screen. Number 1 is Psycho. So, I've been talking to cinema goers. What's the film you wished you'd seen at the cinema?
Thank you, Justin. I like the way he kept the suspense there by telling us the number 1 film straight away. We'll be speaking to Justin Dealey a little bit later on. You can give us a call, 08459 455 555. You can send me a text, 81333, start your text 3CR, or you can go to facebook.com/BBC 3CR.
Across Beds, Herts and Bucks.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Senior police officers have backed the idea of using what are being called drunk tanks to reduce the amount of crime and disorder caused by people drinking too much alcohol. Troublemakers who are drunk would be locked up in cells run by private firms and then have to pay. The plan has been supported by the Chief Constable of Northamptonshire, Adrian Lee, who speaks on the issue for the Association of Chief Police Officers. Well, I'm joined now by BBC's alcohol correspondent, Gavin Lee. Gavin, what exactly is being proposed by ACPO here?
Well, it's essentially a kind of jail cell that's been recommended specifically for those considered too drunk to be on the streets, but rather than the police having to deal with them in the police station, it's going to be a commercial company that runs these units. So the police initially deal with the drunks on the street. They send them to the cells, they lock them up for the night. So it's rather than wasting police resources, so they don't spend perhaps an hour and a half taking someone to the cell, dealing with the paperwork, getting back out onto the beat. They spend 5-10 minutes to the nearest set of cells for them, and the people in there, they would have specific medical care in these drunk tanks, specialist staff looking after those who are in a bad state, in a better place then to decide whether they need hospital care or not. And the man who's behind it, Adrian Lee, Chief Constable of Northamptonshire Police, as part of ACPO, is saying that there shouldn't be people clogging up A&E units. There shouldn't be the police and therefore the taxpayer continuing to pick up the bill for people drinking too much that they can't look after themselves, and it would stop a lot of the A&E units being clogged up, and then the drunk and disorderly get better treatment too. And I guess the sting in the tail, or the sweetener for the taxpayer, is that rather than us paying for the bill, the ACPO are saying, as soon as somebody sobers up in the morning, they will pay for the price of staying in a cell for the night, plus they'll pay a secondary fixed penalty by the police.
What if they haven't got the money, Gavin?
Yeah, well, there's the rub. I mean, ultimately, in theory, it works there and then on the spot. If somebody's on benefits or somebody can't afford it, it'll end up going through the courts. And this has led to a few questions by some other organisations, including the police federations, who've said that it's not a catch-all, it's a sticking plaster, and there's lots of questions this throws up, including, what if somebody can't afford to pay it? Does it start to clog up the court systems then with this whole wider problem that's ancillary to it? And perhaps there should be, this word I hate to use, but the word that the Police Federation have used, the multi-agency approach. Should there be more involvement with the government, really, to try and get on top of this problem?
Is the government behind this? Are they giving it the thumbs up?
It's interesting, actually. There's been a bit of a non-committal statement from the government on this, and certainly from my point of view, it suggests that this is being looked at. But the Crime Prevention Minister, Jeremy Brown, has said he welcomes the campaign. There's also a secondary campaign going on today because it's University Freshers Week starting, and there's going to be a lot more police activity in terms of on-the-spot testing. It's certainly for a lot of university campuses and those cities and towns where a lot of students will be this week. But it's interesting, rewind it a year, David Cameron suggested the same thing, and he said there should be this US style, because I've seen it work amazingly in the States a couple of years ago, where, not personally, luckily.
I was going to say, Gavin, how well have you seen this? How closely have you seen this?
From a distance, and it does, in terms of what I was watching for work, you do see the officers very quickly dealing with people, passing them over and releasing their time. But David Cameron suggested it last year. It went down like a bit of a lead balloon. The Police Federation saying it could be a dangerous idea if they're not properly cared for. This seems to be an updated version, saying that medical staff will be there, and it still wouldn't clog up A&E time. Gavin,
thank you very much indeed. Well, what do you think? You've heard Gavin Lee outline the plan. He says it works in the States. Drunk tanks, are they the best way to treat drunk people in the streets? You have to bear in mind, it'll be a mixture, I would imagine, of binge drinkers, I believe we call them, people who get boozed up on a Friday night, and also proper hardcore alcoholics who've got serious addiction problems to booze. So is it a good idea? If you've seen it work in the States, I'd love to talk to you this morning. 08459 455 555. I do wonder, though, you wake up in the morning and you get a bill. This is the kind of thing that David Lloyd, isn't it, was banging on about, the PCC for... He's Hertfordshire, isn't he? I always get them all mixed up. He was banging on about charging people to stay in prison cells overnight. This seems to be an extension of that. What do you think? Is it a good idea or a terrible idea? 08459 455 555. You can send me a text as well, 81333. Start your text 3CR.
I would take the stars out of the sky for you. Stop the rain from falling if you ask me to. I'd do anything for you. Your wish is my command. I could move a mountain when your hand is in my hand. Words could not express how much you mean to me. There must be some other way to make you see. If it takes my heart and soul, you know I'd pay the price. Everything that I possess, I'd gladly sacrifice. Oh, you to me are everything, the sweetest song that I could sing. Oh, baby, oh, baby. To you I guess I'm just a clown who picks you up each time you're down. Oh, baby, oh, baby. You give me just a taste of love to build my hopes upon. You know you got the power, girl, to keep me holding on. So so far apart. Maybe given time you'll have a change of heart. If it takes forever, girl, then I'm prepared to wait. The day you give your love to me won't be a day too late. Oh, you to me are everything, the sweetest song that I can sing. Oh, baby, oh, baby. To you I guess I'm just a clown who picks you up each time you're down. Oh, baby, oh, baby. You give me just a taste of love to build my hopes upon. You know you got the power, girl, to keep me holding on. So now you got the best of me. Come on and take the rest of me, oh, baby.
You're very lucky I'm here today. Very lucky. I got sent Grand Theft Auto 5 yesterday. I know, I'm 40 years old. 40 years old, and I got sent a free computer game, and part of me went, hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo-hoo! I'll have some of that. I've not had a It's very naughty. People who complain that video games are too violent, oh, grow up. It's very naughty, but it's got an 18 rating. Children shouldn't be playing it. Kids shouldn't play it. So, you know, if I want to play a violent video game, if I want to go and watch a violent movie, then I'm well within my rights to do so, I think, aren't I? Although I did, I was watching a film yesterday. It's not very good. It's called Greenberg. Is it Greenberg? It's Ben Stiller. And it's a little bit raunchy. There are some raunchy bits in it. It's a complicated adult comedy, and there are some raunchy bits in it. And my wife and kids came home during one of the raunchy bits. I won't go into detail, but you know, yes, they were. And so I paused it. I was watching it on the Sky Plus. I paused it, and went and I thought the kids would be asleep in the car, but they weren't. The eldest was awake, so I got him out of the car and let him into the house, and I got the baby out of the car who was asleep. And then the eldest came and said, Dada, what are you watching? Huh? What are you watching? What are that man and woman doing? Whoa, hey, hang on a second. They are having a really interesting discussion about something. Their faces are very close, yes. Their faces are... She's got... Let me just turn this TV off now, shall we? But Grand Theft Auto 5, there will be a furore. There's been a furore about it already. Because someone was stabbed at the launch of it somewhere. Well, yes, it was in Camden in North London, which is quite a stabby place, so that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I'm waiting for the Daily Mail. I don't think the Mail have done it yet. They will, at some point, do a piece. Let me just scan through it now about this. Ban this. Oh, no, here we have. It's pages 8 and 9. A game that spawns violence, torture and murder with the addictive glamour of Hollywood. Yesterday, by James Dellingpole says, yesterday in the process of robbing a bank, I beat up an elderly security guard before shooting dead perhaps 15 policemen, exulting in their murders with a flip dismissal. Shouldn't have been a cop. It's a video game. I genuinely don't believe that, most sane people playing that are going to go out and do naughty things. I'm looking forward to playing it. 08459 455 555. It's 6:15. You're listening to BBC Three Counties Radio. Let's get the travel news now with David Harris.
Hi, good morning. Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hi, good morning. Well, routes are looking pretty quiet at the moment for your Wednesday commute. In the A414, looking quite quiet around the Park Street roundabout. Traffic's looking good on the A421 eastbound as well at the Total roundabout. A couple of roadworks for you to look out for there. The A5 Fenny Stratford bypass, that's the lane closed at the McDonald's roundabout at Watling Street. And the A6, there's also roadworks ongoing at Greyfriars around Beckett Street. I'm David Harris at BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, David. Cheers. It's 6:16. It's Wednesday. What date is it? The 18th of September. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Senior police officers have backed the idea of locking up people who've had too much to drink in cells run by private companies. Luton detectives have been questioning two 18-year-old men arrested in connection with last Friday's murder in Hastings Street. In sport, Watford beat Doncaster 2-1 in the Championship last night, while Luton Town were 3-0 winners at home to Dartford in the Conference. Coming up, we'll be talking about stray dogs. One kennel in Bedfordshire has too many. But why are people abandoning their dogs? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio. Roberto Perrone on BBC Three Counties Radio.
If you're at home, sit back, because this is going to be very, very interesting. You've got the selfie, the legsy, the bumsy.
You're going to start that trend.
Roberto Perrone.
We seem to be heading headlong into war again.
We're very keen to stop this from happening.
We don't know where this might lead. The lie that took us into the Iraq War could become a shocking truth in this one.
Roberto Perrone. Weekdays from 3 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
She don't care. She said that living with me was bringing her down, yeah. She would never be free when I was around. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care. I don't know why she's riding so high. Sure think twice, sure to do right by me before she gets to saying goodbye. Sure think twice, sure to do right by me. I think I'm gonna be sad. I think it's today. She don't care. I don't know why she's riding so high. Sure to think twice, sure to do right by me before she gets to saying goodbye. Sure to think twice, sure to do right by me. She said that living with me was bringing her down, yeah. She would never be free when I was around. Ah, she's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care. My baby don't care. My baby don't care.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give me a call now. Have we got a caller? Are they not there? We'll go to them in a bit. The owner of a Bedfordshire kennel says it's the busiest she's ever known it for stray dogs and that they are full to capacity. Figures released today by the Dogs Trust suggest nationally the number of strays is dropping. But Julie Shelton, who owns Appledown Kennels in Eaton Bray, says the problem has got worse this summer. Julie, who also chairs the charity Appledown Rescue, has been telling our reporter, Iain Duncan, how difficult it is currently.
We take the strays for 4 different councils. The 2 Bedfordshire ones are Luton Borough and Central Bedfordshire. We deal with the owners for those dogs if they come forward to claim them. And then at the end of the 8 days, if they're not claimed, the dogs that are suitable go up for rehoming and we look after them until we find suitable homes for them.
How busy is it at the moment?
It is awful. This is the busiest we have ever known it. I've spoken to other people in rescue kennels and stray kennels, and they're all saying the same. We have never, ever had as many dogs as this.
Can you put a figure on it?
We probably have somewhere around about 70 dogs here at the moment, strays and rescue, and we had never got above 58 up until the beginning of the summer.
Nationally, the trend seems to be a fall in the number of strays, but are places like this always under pressure, no matter what the situation?
We're always under pressure. I think the problem is the figures that you're seeing nationally or that will be coming out were for last year. And yes, it was marginally down, but only marginally down. It's stayed steady at the start of this year and then from the beginning of the summer has gone very, very busy. And I think that will be a national trend that will show up from who I've spoken to. But we're never calm and quiet.
And is this down to the economic recession?
No, that's a complete excuse. It's the fact that people get dogs without giving it any thought. They don't research the breed of dog they get. They treat them as a disposable item and get rid of them. We had one thrown into our car park yesterday. It's people's attitude, I'm afraid. It's nothing to do with anything else. It is entirely down to the type of people that get dogs.
Are there specific breeds that you tend to get more than others?
All areas, unfortunately, are suffering from getting too many staffies because too many people are breeding them and they're breeding them carelessly and they don't care who has them as long as they don't, with the litter. We get a lot of working type dogs in this area, lurchers and terriers and things like that. But we get a huge range. We've got some really rare breeds here at the moment. There is nothing that can't come into rescue, unfortunately, and people will spend a lot of money and then not own that dog within a year.
Which is quite a statement.
Yeah, it is. And foolhardy and awful, but I think the other thing that needs taking into account is what they're doing to their children. This is an awful thing to do to a child if they throw out the family dog. My children would be devastated, and we have more than one dog, so in theory they maybe wouldn't miss one of them, but they'd be devastated. And I think we're teaching our children an awful lesson if they can just get rid of who is actually their best mate in a lot of times.
Do any get put down?
Yeah, they do. Luckily, so far, we've only had to put dogs down where it's completely justified in terms of either the dog's health and there's nothing you can do to help it, or they're not safe to go back out into homes either towards people or to other dogs. But there will come a time that dogs, even in this area, will be put down because there's nowhere for them to go. If we run out of kennels and nobody else has a kennel, what are we meant to do when the next dog comes in? And that is actually the fault of the owners. That's never going to be the fault of the kennels.
How quickly do you see that situation arising?
I don't know. I could imagine it arising much sooner than we'd all like. We are absolutely fit to burst at the moment. We will find a way for that not to happen somehow, but it will become impractical if the numbers carry on as they have done this week. We had 8 in yesterday. That's a lot of dogs to find a kennel for.
Well, that's the owner of Appledown Kennels in Eaton Brae, Julie Shelton, talking to Iain Duncan. They spend about £4,000 a month on vet bills alone trying to put these abandoned animals right. Well, what should happen to these dogs and why do people dump them? 08459 455 555. I'm reading more about the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail, shame on you, naughty. Very naughty, but what they've written about Grand Theft Auto 5. So they've got a 2-page spread, pages 8 and 9, game that spawns violence. Man stabbed for new £45 Grand Theft Auto game as fans queue at midnight. OK, well, that's bad, but you can't link that to the game. That's just yobs. But then, what's this in the bottom left-hand corner? They're trying to piggyback onto another story. Link to US deaths. Let's read more. They couldn't surely be referring to the nutjob who shot 12 people the other day in Washington. Oh, they are! The gunman who killed 12 people in a rampage through a Washington naval base was an obsessive player of violent video games. It emerged yesterday. OK, so he couldn't have been playing Grand Theft Auto 5 because it hadn't been released then. So there's no link to Grand Theft Auto 5. So let's strike that one. Let's carry on. Aaron Alexis, 34, indulged in all-night sessions playing shoot-'em-up games such as Call of Duty and Resident Evil. OK, right. The mentally disturbed killer's gaming sessions would last up to 16 hours. Hang on a second, there are 2 words there that are significant. And it's not gaming sessions. It's mentally disturbed. He was a nut job. He heard voices, hallucinated, and had people telling him to kill people. I suggest it was that more than the violent video games that caused him to shoot 12 people. The AR-15 assault rifle that Alexis used is also one of the weapons in Call of Duty. He didn't use an AR-15 assault rifle, it was a shotgun. Not that makes much difference, but if you're going to be specific about the weapon and link it to Call of Duty, then get it right, Daily Mail. Steve's on the M11. Morning, Steve.
Morning.
Steve, do you play these video games?
Yeah, I've been playing video games since the age of about 15.
And how many people have you killed in real life?
None.
You see? Very quickly, because it's not a brilliant line. Do you think there's a link between these kind of things?
Well, years ago, people used to read books and stuff, and that they got addicted to books. So, I mean, you're more likely to go out and kill someone if you get addicted to books.
Steve, I'm going to end it there because the line's not great. You may laugh at that. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye, Mark Chapman, read that several times and went and shot John Lennon. Should we ban books? If you're a nut job, you're a nut job.
And when I see the sign that points one way, the lot we used to pass by every day, just walk away, Renee. You won't see me follow you back home. The empty sidewalks of my block are not the same. You're not to blame. From deep inside the tears I forced to cry, from deep inside the pain that I chose to hide. Just walk away, Renee. You won't see me follow you back home. Now as the rain is down upon my weary eyes, pour me a Just walk away, Renee. You won't see me follow you back home. Now as the rain is down upon my weary eyes, pour me a glass.
I'll read more of this Daily Mail story because it really is sensationalist tosh, I would suggest. You can give us a call about that or any of the things we're talking about this morning. 08459 455 555. It's coming up to 6:30 on BBC Three Counties Radio. Let's get the travel news now. Here's David Harris.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. Well, routes across the county looking pretty good at the moment. The county is looking pretty good at the moment. Through St Albans, the A414 coping pretty well. Nothing really building up around the Park Street roundabout in Buckingham Town Centre. The total roundabout looking quite quiet as well. M25 heading anti-clockwise. It's looking slow at junction 19 for Watford. Also, public transport is looking good. I'm David Harris at BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, David. It's 6:30 News and Sport now. Here's Catherine.
Across beds, hearts and bugs.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. The headline: senior police officers are backing the idea of locking up people who've had too much to drink in cells run by private companies. Luton detectives have been questioning two 18-year-old men arrested in connection with last Friday's murder in Hastings Street. And a group of MPs is warning that the cost of a multi-billion-pound computer system for the NHS are continuing to rise 2 years after the government announced it was scrapping the programme.
Three Counties Sports.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
It was A good night for Manchester United at Old Trafford as they began this season's Champions League campaign. They beat Bayer Leverkusen 4-2 in Group A with 2 goals from Wayne Rooney, including his 200th for the club. United's other goals were scored by Robin van Persie and Antonio Valencia. Manchester City, meanwhile, were 3-0 winners away to the Czech side Victoria Pilsen in Group D. City's goals were scored by Edin Dzeko, Yaya Toure and Sergio Aguero. The match also saw the return of the City captain Vincent Kompany following a groin injury. In the Championship last night, a late penalty gave Watford a 2-1 win over Doncaster at Vicarage Road. Their manager Gianfranco Zola was pleased to pick up 3 points.
The quality of the football improves, or create opportunities. We are very unlucky not to score. To be honest, they had a couple of chances on counter when we made a mistake in coming out with the ball, but I believe in the end the result is correct.
In the conference, Luton Town beat Dartford 3-0 at Kenilworth Road thanks to goals from Paul Benson, Luke Guttridge and Alex Lawless. Here's Hatters boss John Still.
I think Alex done very well, but I think we're seeing a fit of Paul Benson as well now. His movement is so good, it's so clever, brings so many people into play. So I think there's a bit of confidence in that as well, and I thought him and Luke Guttridge worked really, really well, really clever between the two of them, and we got some better quality balls in the box today. Good performance.
Not such a good result for Boreham Wood in the Skrill South last night. They lost 2-0 at Farnborough. Meanwhile, in the Southern Premier, Hemel Hempstead stayed top after thrashing Bashley 4-1, and Chesham was second after beating Bedford 3-0. And that's your latest news and sport.
Bashley!
I was waiting for that one.
Sorry, I was busy.
It's your latest news and sport. I'll be back with more at 7 o'clock.
Call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning! This is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. I'm going to buy a scarf today. That's going to be... I'm going into that there London. And I'm going to go into one of the shops. I don't know, The Gap, Marks & Spencer's, Next. They've got them all there. Not Next. And I'm too old for Next, aren't I? I think at 40? Yes, probably. And I'm going to buy a scarf. Apparently they do sell scarves in Luton and indeed throughout the rest of the 3 counties, but the ones in London are so much fancier, aren't they? Aren't they? No, of course they're not at all, but yes, that's what I'll be doing. Dealey, have you got a scarf?
Of course I have. Got loads of them.
No, you haven't got a scarf, have you? You've got a snood.
No, I've got snoods and scarves, both.
Remind me, a snood is a hood and a scarf.
Basically, I think the difference is, in layman's terms, a scarf, okay, it's just, it's a long piece of material.
Yes,
but with a snood, it's joined up like a big circle, so you put that round your neck and you're even warmer.
And also, I guess that the benefit of wearing a snood is people can tell from a distance just how much of an idiot you are.
Oh, dear.
Well, they can, can't they?
Is that right?
Yeah, they can see you've got no... Yeah, they can... let me finish. They can see... Yeah, I will. They can see you've got no fashion sense...
Right.
Whatsoever, so they can go, I won't talk to that muppet.
Who's the source on this, by the way?
I cannot reveal my sources, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Justin. We've got a choice here, and I'm going to give you the choice. I was told this week by a member of my team that you do a radio show as well, on this station, apparently.
Yes, Saturday mornings between 9 and 12. Great songs and great memories.
And you get a lot of guests on there, and people request songs, and you've got a jukebox with 1 million CDs in, and all of that. Who's on there this week, by the way?
This week we have Benny King.
Really?
Yes.
Is he not dead?
No, he's still alive.
What did Benny King sing? He
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
Legend.
He is a legend.
Yes.
Wow, fantastic. So we've got a choice. We can either do your bit now, or we can play ABBA, and then do your bit after. Now, because you are a disc jockey yourself, I thought I'd put you in the hot seat. What would you do?
I think, based on your fashion rant there, I think we should go for ABBA. I presume it's what, SOS? Yeah, let's do that then.
Would you like to introduce it?
This is ABBA, SOS, on the Iain Lee Breakfast Show across beds, hearts and bucks. A very good morning to you.
Didn't quite talk up to the vocals. Never mind. This is how you do it. Here's ABBA.
Where are those happy days? They seem so hard to find. I tried to reach for you, but you have closed your mind. Whatever happened to our love? I wish I understood. It used to be so nice, it used to be so good.
The love you gave me, nothing else can save me. SOS.
we go, you see. Films are good, aren't they? We all like a good film, and some of us even like a rubbish film. I watched the awful... What was the film I watched the other night? What was it? Battlefield Los Angeles or something. Or it was... it was a stinker. Have you seen that one, Just?
No, I haven't, no.
Oh, it was a stinker. I very nearly went to the pictures to see it. I'm glad I didn't. And it was so bad that I kind of left it on as I was pottering around the house. And basically, aliens invade the world, but the American soldiers in Los Angeles managed to defeat them.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I think it's based on a true story. But there are some films that you watch on TV, on VHS, Betamax, DVD these days, and you think, oh, I wish I'd gone to the pictures to see that.
Absolutely.
Or also, I remember, I went through a thing of the last couple of years watching a lot of movies on planes. I do like watching a movie on a plane. It makes me very emotional. I think it's the high altitude. Makes me cry. I remember crying at a Jackie Chan film once on an aeroplane.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I was crying because it was a return to form after a series of duds, and also I found it very emotional when his work colleagues were killed by a terrorist.
I hate watching films on a plane.
Really?
Yeah, those stupid little headphones, and then suddenly halfway through, all the announcements come on. No, can't be doing with that.
And also, they do edit quite a lot of bits out of... I watched The Wrestler on an aeroplane, then I watched it again on TV a few years later and thought, none of this was in the film I saw.
The Wrestler.
What's funny about that?
The Wrestler.
The Wrestler's a great film.
Oh, you make me laugh.
Why would...
I'm learning something about you today.
Why would me enjoying The Wrestler starring Mickey Rooney, no, I mean Rourke, why would that make you laugh? It's a cracking film.
When have you ever been interested in wrestling?
In the late 1970s, early 80s with
Seriously?
Big Daddy, yeah, of course. Wow. Daddy Splat.
So you don't like football, but you like wrestling?
Yeah, of course I do.
Strange, man.
But that's a proper sport.
No, it's not.
Anyway, this morning, for some reason, the last 2 weeks you're going, I've got a great story, big man, got a great story, get us 2 coughs, free shugs, great story, I want to do films. And I've just sat in the office going, whatever, Justin, I'm really not interested. But you're adamant about this. It's films that you wish you'd seen at the cinema.
Yeah.
Where does this come from?
There's a report out today, and it's named the top 10 movies that we wish we'd seen on the big screen. Yep. Now, the top 3, Psycho, The Wizard of Oz, and Gone with the Wind.
Oh.
These are classic films that people have maybe seen on TV or on DVD, and they're watching them and they're thinking, I wish I was around, or I wish I'd had the opportunity to go to the cinema to watch them, because, you know, undoubtedly, if you go and watch a film at the cinema, it just brings something to it, the atmosphere, the people around you. And Psycho, seeing that on DVD, on the small screen, doesn't do a lot for me, but on the big screen, that would definitely work.
No, it wouldn't work, because all 3 of those films you mentioned are tedious and overrated.
All 3?
Yeah. Oh, Gone with the Wind is awful, Dealey. And The Wizard of Oz, oh, for goodness
sake.
Like
Carry On, Singing in the Rain's on this list. It's a Wonderful Life, Casablanca.
Now, they're
Breakfast
good films.
at Tiffany.
They are good films.
Hot, West Side Story, and Ben-Hur.
Is your favourite on there? Because I know you love Cocktail.
Love Cocktail. No, it's not on the list.
That's not on there. That's a shame.
I think those things in Hawaii would have maybe come alive a bit more.
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you to Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama, Key Largo, Montego Bay. I wanna take you down to Kokomo. We'll get there fast and then we'll take it slow. That's where we wanna go. Way down in Kokomo.
Very good.
Listen, when this gig ends for both of us, it probably will after that.
Yes.
Do you want to start a Beach Boys tribute band with me?
Yeah, why not? I think I can make a
Anyway, go on. You've been talking to people about this, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been talking to cinema goers, and the guy at the end is very, very strange. Iain, you will love this guy. But I've been talking to cinema goers about the films they wish they'd seen at the cinema, and here's what people had to say.
Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind.
Why The Wizard of Oz?
Because it goes into colour, from the black and white to the magical of the colour. I would love to have seen that. Love to have seen it, the original, in the day when it came out.
And Gone with the Wind, though, mind you, after 3 hours, you get a sore backside, wouldn't you? At least if you watch it at home, you can go and make yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, something like that.
No, I think seeing something in the cinema it's absolutely brilliant. You can't beat it.
Italian Job. Michael Caine, Minis.
The Lord of the Rings films, I never really got a chance to see them at the cinema. I only saw them when they came out on DVD, so I wish I saw those at the cinema.
Amy, you're the second person tonight to mention Gone with the Wind. What would have been so special about watching that film at the cinema?
Just seeing it on the big screen. Something about the whole love affair and the big story. It would have been great to have seen it on the big screen, definitely.
Probably E.T. I just saw a very sort of scratchy video of it many years ago.
And you're here with your partner tonight. Would you go along with that then, E.T.?
Yeah, definitely. I saw it recently on television and I cried my eyes out.
Yeah.
You know, it's just such an emotional film, and it's such a... Whereas, you know, it appeals to adults and children, so it's a good real family film.
Brilliant. What are you off to see tonight, by the way?
We're off to see Rush. Is it 1976 it's set in, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the year we got married.
Ah, right.
And I was a big James Hunt fan. And Nicky
I was a big Grand Prix fan, so
Right.
I actually saw them racing quite regularly in those days. So brings back a lot of memories.
Come on then, Nick. Give me your film titles.
I'm going to say 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes!
The original. Exorcist as well. Old school horror. Revolutionary.
You look a bit creepy with them eyes when you're telling me about these films as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's not a compliment. Do you know what? I actually know somebody who saw The Exorcist. The first night it came out, it was in Leicester Square, and they came out and they said that everyone was being sick outside. Now, based on what you just heard there, would you still have wanted to see that at the cinema?
Yeah, I think so. It's just like with nowadays horror, like the censorship has sort of died. People are more used to this sort of stuff, so I think going back with now sort of ideals of horror, I think be alright with that sort of stuff.
You got a girlfriend?
No.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
No worries.
Your mother sucks lollipops in hell. It's a good... The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of my favourites. I love that film.
But you got to say, if you watch that at the cinema, you can pick up on the emotion around you, people being terrified. It'd be great.
Do you know, I went to the cinema to see that actually a few years ago. There was they were re-screening it, and yes, it was wonderful in there. Absolutely wonderful.
And that person who mentioned The Exorcist, that was a true story about somebody I know who saw that film. They came out and they were ill. And we're talking about somebody who's a bit of a hard nut at the time. They just couldn't handle what they'd seen. I mean, it'd be interesting to know if anybody else listening saw that the opening night and they were also ill.
Well, Catherine Boyle's just messaging me saying, I saw The Exorcist at Leicester Square, everyone laughed. The thing is, she is old enough to have seen it first time around, so maybe she was... Paul Scoynes, the BBC Three Counties political reporter, at least I think he is, although I've not seen him for a month.
Yeah, where is he?
He's never seen a horror film. And come a bit closer, Justin.
I'm coming.
He's not allowed to. His wife has forbidden him from watching a horror film.
Why?
I guess she's scared that maybe he'll wet the bed or something.
What's the scariest horror film we can think of? Let's sit him down, let's tie him to a BBC chair and force him to watch a horror film.
Dealey, I am there, sir. I am there. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent stuff. Well, you can have your say. Facebook.com/BBC 3CR. What films do you wish you'd seen at the cinema? Forget the fact it costs a fortune these days. It is, I do find it much more enjoyable watching films at the cinema. It's that shared experience. Although saying that, to completely contradict myself, ever been in the cinema entirely on your own? Isn't that fun? Like a private screening. Facebook.com/BBC 3CR. You can give me a call. 08459 455 555.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Delays on the M25 anti-clockwise. There's a lane closed. It's an accident just after Watford at junction 19 with congestion back to junction 21 at the M1. So traffic joining from the M1 is going straight into a queue if you're going onto the anti-clockwise carriageway. The accident is blocking lane 4 just after junction 19. There are also delays going anti-clockwise into the roadworks section, so it's looking slow past junction 25 Enfield toward 24 at Potters Bar. And some of that traffic already looks like it's tailing back toward junction 26 around Waltham Abbey. Things generally quite clear though on the other main routes through the three counties. The M1 looking fine on the cameras. No delays yet to or from Bedford or Milton Keynes, and the A1 looking like a clear run until you get further into London, where you'll find slow traffic from Apex Corner toward Mill Hill Circus. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. Nice of you to turn up. 6:47. It's Wednesday, the 18th of September. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Senior police are calling for the introduction of so-called drunk tanks, cells where the drunk and disorderly will be held by private companies who'll charge them for their stay. Luton detectives have arrested two 18-year-old men in connection with a fatal stabbing in Hastings Street last Friday. And in sport, Sir Bradley Wiggins takes a 33-second lead in today's fourth stage of cycling's Tour of Britain after winning yesterday's time trial by more than half a minute. Coming up, should Scotland be an independent country? And can I ask you a question, Beds, Hearts and Bucks? Well, it's a big story. It's a year until the vote takes place. Are you bothered by it in the slightest? Does it concern you? Have you got thoughts in it? Or do you kind of think, really? I kind of do. I am slightly concerned about it, but I don't know why. 08459 455 555. Let's get the weather.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. Well, if you are heading out, it's a bit of a grey start this morning. However, it's a good news day. It is an improvement on yesterday. Any cloud around this morning will sink south. It'll break up and we'll get some really nice sunny spells to enjoy. May get one or two showers, but they're fairly unlikely. Too many people will see them. They're going to float through quite quickly if you do catch one, but it will be unlucky. Maximum temperature warmer, 16 Celsius, 61 degrees in Fahrenheit. Now, overnight it's going to be quite chilly. It's going to drop down in temperature fairly quickly because of the clearing skies this afternoon, but through the early hours of tomorrow morning the cloud increases from the west. Minimum temperature 6 Celsius, 43 degrees in Fahrenheit. A cloudy start tomorrow and the rain will arrive. Now, the cloud arriving overnight is the view of these weather systems heading our way for tomorrow, which means wet and windy weather for the middle part of the day. It will ease off towards the latter part of the afternoon. Although the temperature is going to be similar today, it's not going to feel quite as pleasant because of all that cloud and rain. The maximum 16 Celsius, 61 degrees in Fahrenheit. And that's your forecast.
Thank you very much. 08459 455 555 is the phone number if you want to give us a call.
Saturdays on BBC Three Counties Radio are about
6 minutes past 6, starting your Saturday morning. Let's get stuck straight into the news.
Memories.
Let's begin with the UK charts from this day.
1980. Food.
My Weekend Kitchen brings you delicious, simple recipes for you to make at home.
Sport.
Live commentary every week from your local team.
And local unsigned music.
BBC introducing bringing you local music to Beds, Hearts and Bucks.
For full programme details, go online to bbc.co.uk/Three Counties. Saturdays on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Like the legend of the Phoenix, all ends with beginnings. What keeps the planet spinning? The force from the beginning. Love. We've come too far to give up who we are. So let's raise the bar and our cups to the stars. She's up all night to the sun. I'm up all night to get some. She's up all night for good fun. I'm up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to the sun. We're up all night to get some. We're up all night for good fun. We're up all night to get lucky. 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 The present has no ribbon. Your gift keeps on giving. What is this I'm feeling? If you wanna leave, I'm with it. We've come too far to give up who we are. So let's raise the bar and our cups to the stars. She's up all night to the sun. I'm up all night to get some. She's up all night for good fun. I'm up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to the sun. up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to get. 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 We're up all night to get lucky. 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 We've come so far to get back who we are. So let's raise the bar and our cause to the stars. She's up all night to the sun. I'm up all night to get some. She's up all night for good fun. I'm up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to the sun. We're up all night to get some. We're up all night for good fun. We're up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to get lucky.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio, 08459 455 555. And today marks 1 year to go until voters in Scotland take part in a referendum which will ask them the straight question, should Scotland, oh there we go, there's a Freudian slip, should Scotland be an independent country? Well, if the Scottish people choose to break away, what will it mean for us in England? And how would it affect the Scottish people? Joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Matt Vortrup, who's an expert in referendums at Cranfield University. Morning, Matt.
Good morning.
This is a hugely significant referendum. It could change what's been in place for centuries, couldn't it?
It could indeed. Scotland could become an independent country, and that obviously would be rather different. But I think in the sort of greater scheme of things, it probably won't have that much of an impact. The United Kingdom, the rest of the United Kingdom, would probably still keep its seat at the United Nations Security Council, and so I think in some ways it would be cosmetic, even if, of course, it would be very symbolic.
So we would still be called the United Kingdom. Would it have any impact on England?
Well, it obviously will have some impact. There'll be some money that will be lost due to the revenue from the Scottish oil, but then equally there's quite a lot of money going the other way. So when you're looking at it, England and Wales and Northern Ireland might together actually save a little bit of money because there's actually a little bit more money going to Scotland that's coming from Scotland at the moment. But we're talking about relatively small sums of money here.
I've heard the argument that it seems a little bit one-sided, that the Scots are getting the vote on whether they should stay or should go, whereas England are having no say in this at all.
Yeah, well, there've probably been about 150 referendums on independence since the French Revolution, and actually it's only in 2 of those that the mother country, if you like, has been allowed to vote. And back in the day when Estonia, Latvia and the Ukraine seceded from the Soviet Union didn't get the right to vote, and it wouldn't have probably been fair for them to get the right to vote there. So I think it's established in international law and probably also in political morality that the country from which you secede should not be allowed to block it.
Matt, what would happen? This might seem like a silly, naive question. What would happen to the Union flag if Scotland leave the Union?
It would probably be awkward that it looks like it does, but then again, I mean, there are quite a lot of countries that have become independent. They haven't changed their flag, even if the insignia of the country that seceded is still on it. Most recently, it was Sudan, where South Sudan became an independent country, and that didn't change their flag. So there might be a bit of a push towards changing the flag, but it's one of those things where we're talking about more sort of like the aesthetics of it and less the practicalities.
Do we know how much call there is for independence in Scotland, or is this the Scottish Nationalist Party stirring things up?
I think the opinion polls indicate that Scotland would vote no. There's been a bit of a narrowing of the polls, and a lot of people would probably put their money on a no vote. Having said that, in 1975 there was a referendum whether Britain should leave the the EEC, which later became the EU. Initially, the polls were 60-40, and people wanted to leave the EU. Within a year, Harold Wilson, who was then Prime Minister, changed it all around, and people voted yes to staying in. Equally, when we had a referendum a few years ago about the electoral system, initially 70% wanted to change the electoral system, and when there was a vote a year later, 70% were against that. So opinion polls can change, and a year is a long time in politics.
Matt, thank you very much indeed. That's Dr. Matt Vortrup, who's an expert in referendums at Cranfield University. You're going to be reading and hearing a lot about this today, because it is a year exactly until the referendum goes ahead, and as we get closer to that, you're going to be reading and hearing more. Does it really concern you? When we were talking about doing this yesterday, I was struggling to wonder if you, the listener in Beds, Hearts and Bucks, felt anything towards this. I can't quite work it out. I need to speak to you. You're my eyes and ears this morning, letting me know what you think about Scottish independence. Are you strongly against it? Are you strongly for it? Or is it a collective shrug of the shoulders I can hear? 08459 455 555. Does the prospect of Scottish independence concern you in the slightest? Do you have incredibly strong feelings about it? Or do you think, really, who cares? Let them do what they want. 08459 455 555. Right, it's time to get the travel.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Heavy traffic on the M25 anti-clockwise, Waltham Abbey to Enfield into the roadworks, but there's problems further around anti-clockwise. An accident just after Watford at junction 19 means that lane 4 is still blocked just after that junction, and there's congestion on the motorway back as far as the M1 at junction 21. It's taking well over half an hour to get through there. If you're driving through St Albans, they continue with the water main work on the Hatfield Road. It's just after the junction with Ashley Road. And works in Beaconsfield have been getting busy the last few mornings. Along the A355, some temporary traffic lights up between Burnham Road and Harehatch Lane, quite near to Dorney Bottom. If you're driving into London, the A1 southbound through Boreham Wood is queuing from the Holiday Inn junction down toward Mill Hill Circus. Trains and tubes, though, are doing well. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. I'm reading more of this article in the Daily Mail about video games, Grand Theft Auto 5. There's a great line at the end of the piece by James Dellingpole. Is he trying to get people scared? Really? Here's the news with Catherine.
Local and vocal across Beds, Hearts and Bucks.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. I'm Catherine Boyle. The headline: senior police back drunk tank plans, 2 more arrests after Luton stabbing, and Herts headmaster claims boarding schools can be a cheaper option.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Senior police officers have backed the idea of locking up people who've had too much to drink in cells run by private companies. Anyone kept in the so-called drunk tanks would be charged a fee the next morning, in plans backed by the Chief Constable of Northamptonshire, Adrian Lee. Graham Satchell has more.
Half of all violent crime is linked to alcohol. Mr. Lee describes 24-hour opening as a brave experiment that hasn't worked. He's critical of the government for not implementing a minimum price for alcohol. And he suggested people who need medical attention for being drunk should be looked after in privately run facilities known as drunk tanks or drunk cells. When they'd sobered up, the company would charge them for their care, and the police would issue them with a fixed penalty fine. The government says it's taking a wide range of action to tackle crime and disorder caused by alcohol.
2 18-year-old men have been arrested by police investigating a murder in Luton last Friday. 19-year-old Micah Urquhart was found with stab wounds a short distance from his home in Hastings Street. He died at the scene. Bedfordshire Police are appealing for witnesses. A report by MPs has recommended that the number of nurses on duty in every English hospital should be collected and published. The Commons Health Select Committee was giving its response to the Francis inquiry into failings at Stafford Hospital, where poor care may have contributed to the deaths of hundreds of people. Thames Valley Police are warning of a new phone scam which has already claimed 17 victims in Milton Keynes. Tony Fisher has more.
Courier fraud, as it's known, is often targeted at the elderly and vulnerable. The victim is tricked into revealing their bank details over the phone before their card is then collected by a courier. In other cases, victims are conned into cutting their cards in half before posting them to the fraudster, who simply tapes the card back together. Police want those with elderly relatives or neighbours to be on the lookout.
Sending a child to boarding school can be more cost-effective than shuttling children to different sports and activities, according to a leading headmaster from Hertfordshire. Ray McGovern from St George's School in Harpenden says that boarding schools are not elitist and insists they can be a good option for working parents, single-parent families and people living in rural areas. There's concern this morning that the number of dogs abandoned by their owners may be on the rise. While national figures from the Dogs Trust suggest the number of stray dogs they take in is decreasing, it would seem that's not the picture in Bedfordshire. Julie Shelton owns Appledown Kennels in Eaton Bray.
It is awful. This is the busiest we have ever known it. I've spoken to other people in rescue kennels and stray kennels and they're all saying the same. We have never ever had as many dogs as this.
In the Championship last night, a late penalty gave Watford a 2-1 win over Doncaster at Vicarage Road. Meanwhile, Luton Town were 3-0 winners at home to Dartford in the conference. The weather, sunshine with a chance of isolated showers and a top temperature of 16 degrees Celsius. That's 61 Fahrenheit. Get the latest news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties.
Thank you, Catherine. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. 3 minutes past 7, it's Wednesday. Lots to talk about, and as always, looking forward to chatting to you on the phone. I'll give you the contact details in a little bit. Coming up, police chiefs are calling for privately run drunk tanks to be considered to help tackle alcohol-fuelled disorder. Is it a good idea, or is it a little bit unfair? Kennels in Beds, Herts and Bucks are full of strays, but why do people abandon their dogs? A couple of other things. Scottish independence, do you care? Really, if you're not playing video games, I strongly suggest that you're missing out on something. And this furore that the Daily Mail is instigating around Grand Theft Auto 5 is completely unjustified. I'll read you some of James Dellingpole's article a bit later on. Sensationalist pap. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send me a text, 81333. Start your text 3CR. Or you can give me a phone call, 08459 455 555.
Across Beds, Herts and Bucks.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Are drunk tanks a good idea? Well, they're a suggestion from the Association of Chief Police Officers. It says that more needs to be done to tackle a culture of drinking to excess and alcohol-related crime. ACPO says 50% of all violent crime involves alcohol, and dealing with it costs the police £11 billion a year. Well, Chief Constable Adrian Lee is the national policing lead on alcohol harm. He says we need a public debate.
Those who set out to get drunk and get to a state of affairs where they're incapable of looking after their own safety, and the police pick that up, that's public money being used irresponsibly, I think. And I want to know what the public think about that. Is that how the public wants us to use our resource?
Well, he's backing the introduction of these drunk tanks. Troublemakers who are drunk and disorderly would be locked up in cells run by private firms who then recoup the cost by charging them in the morning. And according to the Daily Telegraph, that charge would be how much? How much? £400 a night. That's a night in a very, very nice hotel. There, with breakfast thrown in as well. Get as much as you want from the breakfast buffet. They'd also have to pay a fine. Now, not everyone thinks the plan would work. I'm joined now by Gary Topley, who used to drink heavily and is an alcohol awareness specialist. Gary, what do you think of this idea?
I think there's a lot of grey areas in it myself. For example, how would you care for someone that's dependent on alcohol, that's been repeatedly picked up weekend after weekend or night after night, compared to somebody that's gone out on a weekend, you know, gone a bit over the top with their friends and been arrested? For example, you know, a Christmas party or something like that. I don't think, personally, there is a one-size-fits-all approach, and people have to be dealt with individually.
If people are drunk and they're causing trouble on the streets, though, whether they are, you know, an alcoholic or they're just someone out on a bit of a bender on a Friday night, it's not fair, is it, that the police have to spend so much of their time and resources dealing with them?
No, I completely agree. You know, they should be focusing on other crimes, and, you know, they shouldn't be taking or using their resources up, concentrating on the alcohol-related violence that is happening in our towns and cities.
Well, but if they see but again, it's alcohol-related violence. If they see those drunks, shouldn't they just put them in the back of the van, take them to a drunk tank, and say, right, there you go, cool off in there?
Then you've got to look at how it's going to be implemented. You know, if for example, you said £400, how's that going to be implemented? What if these people are on benefits? Are they going to pay back like £1 a week back? Obviously then they're going to lose money because not everyone's going to pay it. So it's reinforcing that as well to try and, get the money back.
What do you think should be done with drunken people?
There's a big long list of stuff, there's a lot more education needs to be done in schools. I believe it should start younger. There is, some already, but not enough, to make people aware, when enough is enough. And a lot more other stuff should go on as well.
It's not going to stop alcoholics drinking, is it, at all?
No, like I said, people that are dependent on alcohol, how is this going to help them? I can't see it helping them. People that, are severely dependent, where they go out shoplifting alcohol, for example. That is a criminal offence, and if they're doing it under the influence, obviously they're going to be arrested for theft or whatever it may be, and then are they going to be taken to one of these drink tanks?
Well, I imagine if they've been caught shoplifting, that they'd be taken to a proper jail and charged appropriately with that. It's interesting. Twice I've noticed you say, how's it going to help them? Why should we be helping them?
Because again, it is taking up a lot of money in society, a lot of public money, and there should be other stuff in place, which there isn't. There should be more access to treatment centres and things like that. There's not enough access to treatment centres. You look at rehabs, for example. It's only the rich and famous can go to rehabs because no one can afford to go to them.
Well, that's slightly disingenuous. There are plenty of rehabs throughout the country that aren't for rich and famous people that the ordinary man and woman off the street can go to, aren't there?
Not at all. That all depends on funding again. So, a person just can't walk off the street and say, right, I want a detox for the next 12 weeks.
Well, no, you have to book it in through the medical places. But I know plenty of people who've been to detoxes that haven't cost them thousands of pounds.
Again, it's fund independent, so...
But also, people aren't going to want to get help. They're not going to, they can't be forced to get clean, can they, if they don't want to?
That's right. That's another story. They can't be forced. You have to do it when you're good and ready. It took me 16 years of abusing alcohol until I was good and ready to stop. And a lot of that came from, my child that was born and my partner that I was with.
Do you think this is just a money-making exercise, Gary?
I think it is a money-making exercise. Like I said, there is a lot of grey areas in it. Again, the level of care would be different to somebody that's been drinking to somebody that's been dependent. And again, getting the money off people. If someone charged you for £400 for doing it, would you be saying, yeah, I'll pay that, not a problem? There's going to be a lot of people saying, look, I only went out, I drank too much, and now I've got to pay this, I'm not paying it. So will it be enforced by the courts or just by this private commercial company?
Gary, just in case there's anybody listening who may be suffering with an alcohol problem, how long have you been sober for?
5 years in 3 months.
Well, there you go. Happy birthday. Fantastic stuff. Gary, thank you. Gary Topley used to drink heavily. He's now an alcohol awareness specialist. What do you think? 08459 455 555.
Text 81333.
Start your message with 3CR.
Text will be charged at the standard network rate.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
In a year from today, the Scotch will be voting on independence. Are you bothered by it in the slightest in Beds, Herts and Bucks? We were talking about this yesterday, and I couldn't work out if you, the listener, would be really passionate about this or kind of shrugging your shoulders. It's an odd one, isn't it? 08459 455 555. Richard's in Winslow. Morning, Richard.
Good morning, Iain, my dear. How are you?
Yeah, very well, Richard.
Splendid. I read an article a few years back about the likelihood of the currency they may end up with. Basically, what the article was saying was that if, at the moment, they're part of the United Kingdom, so they are part of the EU, so they have we have sterling. Yep. But if they leave the United Kingdom, they'll effectively leave the EU. And if they wish to rejoin that, part of the conditions of rejoining the EU is that you would take on board the euro. Now, I'm sure you've got experts listening that know more about this than I do, and I just wonder how happy they would feel up in Scotland if they ended up with the euro.
Well, Richard, I know a little bit more about it than you do.
Okay.
Shall I tell you? There is no precedent for this, so it's unclear whether they would have to join the euro. Well, the only precedent there is Sweden, who joined the EU, and they voted out of using the euro. So the precedent has been set that they wouldn't necessarily have to have the euro.
Well, I'm not sure that applies now, because I understand anyone who applies now to join it would have to take the euro. So that may have been the case with Sweden, which I think was some long time ago.
It's about 10 years ago, yes, 2003, and they have changed things slightly. But it hasn't. They've not had a devolved country joining the EU yet, so it is uncharted territory. And I would have thought there would have been. Look at me knowing my stuff.
Let's get an expert on it, because it's rather fascinating.
Are you saying I'm not an expert, Richard?
I beg pardon?
Are you saying I'm not an expert?
Well, are you aware of the definition of an expert?
Let's get an expert on to discuss that, shall we?
I know you said the other day that you were an expert.
Yes.
And I refrain from phoning you up, giving you a definition of an expert, but I'll happily give it to you now if you wish.
Please do, Richard.
An expert has been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure.
Thank you very much indeed. I've not a clue what that was about, but thank you, Richard. It is uncharted territory in terms of Scotland having to join the euro. George Osborne, of course, could play a naughty game on them and say, yeah, so you're devolved, are you? Right, well, we're not going to allow you to print banknotes anymore. He could do that. Wouldn't that be... I hate Scottish money anyway. Oh, it's the worst thing when you go to Scotland and you come back with brown £10 notes and you get into a cab or you try and buy... I'm not taking that, mate. You have to. No, I don't. Oh, and you can't get rid of them. Those horrible brown £10 notes that you just can't get rid of. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call on that. And you may be wondering how I knew a lot about that. I knew what Richard was going to ask me, so I Googled it very quickly. I was reading an article from the New Statesman. That's how I know. Who's this from? Karen has emailed him. Iain, I've lived in England for 30 years. I say give Scotland independence. They won't last 5 minutes. We must not give them any money. They should sort their own problem out. As far as I'm concerned, I'm English. I'm assuming, Karen, that you've moved from Scotland. Is that right? OK, yes. 08459 455 555. And we're talking about films that you wish you'd seen at the cinema instead of on DVD or on the telly. Iain, The Exorcist is rubbish and dated. I'll give you that. Yes, Julie, it is a little bit rubbish. It had to resort to subliminal messages to make people sick. I don't think it did. Subliminal messages in The Exorcist. I thought that subliminal messages were illegal. Many movies have done this. Alfred Hitchcock was a master at it for his movies too. Subliminal messages? In movies? Really? Really? Well, let's go. I'm being told that Kelly Betts, who is still just a member of our team here at BBC Three Counties Radio, has studied film at college. By that, it means she sat there with a long cigarette watching DVDs. I'm joking. Kelly Betts?
Yes.
The subliminal the bits in movies, has that happened?
Apparently, for The Exorcist, now this is apparently, don't say that it's the truth or anything, they recorded the sound of your house being heated.
Mine?
And put it in The Exorcist. Not yours. Maybe yours.
Yes.
It's been yours, you know. You've been in the industry for a while.
Thank you.
It's the sound of your pipes heating up that they used in The Exorcist, so that when you'd hear that and you'd hear it in your house, you'd be reminded of that film and you'd feel scared again. Something like that.
So
really listen.
You missed out on the course. OK, so you're saying that there is a subliminal recording of heating pipes in that film. So when you go, what degree did you get from this course?
I passed.
Wow, you got a pass.
Yeah.
Wow, and what does that entitle you to? Like you discounted popcorn at Odeon?
No, I can just say things about films like this.
There we go, fantastic. 08459 455 555. Let's get the travel news now.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Delays on the M25 anti-clockwise, firstly into the roadworks Waltham Abbey to Enfield, but then as you continue round, long delays following an accident. This is just after junction 19 at Watford. The congestion all the way back to junction 22 at St Albans. It's taking on average 45 minutes to get through, possibly a little longer than that. It's lane 4 that is blocked just after junction 19 at Watford. Still looking really bad on the cameras round there. The A1 into London delays, queues from the Holiday Inn junction at Boreham Wood down toward Mill Hill Circus. Roadworks on the M40, of course, still ongoing. They're not causing any problems at the minute, but if you're going up as far as junction 7 at Tame, you have 50 mile an hour speed restriction and narrow lanes. We're looking okay past High Wycombe. In Milton Keynes, the A5 along the Fenny Stratford bypass, still one lane closed for junction improvement works as you come down to the McDonald's roundabout at the A4146. Trains and tubes running to time. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Adam, I'm being presented with the most incredible line of nonsense from Kelly. I don't know if you've heard Kelly Betts there. Apparently studied film at college and she passed. She's telling me that, and this is not a particularly nice story, but bear with me, that Judy Garland's husband, during the filming of The Wizard of Oz, hanged himself, and they had to put in a flying witch that you could see the body in the film. Have you heard this?
No, surely not.
That can't be true, can it?
I would have thought that would be a bit inappropriate.
It would have been very inappropriate, Ad. I'm heading off to Google. Right, it's 7:17. It is Wednesday, the 18th of September. I'm Iain Lee. These are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Senior police officers have backed the idea of locking up the drunk and disorderly in private-run cells for which they'll incur a charge. Luton detectives are questioning two 18-year-olds arrested in connection with Friday's fatal stabbing in Hastings Street. In sport, Watford beat Doncaster 2-1 in the Championship last night, while Luton Town were 3-0 winners at home to Dartford in the conference. And we're just getting in from our news department an exclusive. The story about Judy Garland's husband hanging himself on the set of The Wizard of Oz, according to Catherine Boyle, is utter balls.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Strictly's back.
Who'll be the prince of the passo and who'll trip up on their tango?
It started with a sparkle as the stars were revealed.
My favourite is the hairy biker.
Mr. Chaplin. I think he's going to surprise us.
Sophie Ellis-Bextor.
Mark Benton. He'll really enjoy it.
Then the pro dancers added their glitter.
Ola's gorgeous. Pasha.
Artem. He's got a really strong presence.
James. Cheeky Chappy.
And now the judges want to see who will dazzle on the dance floor.
Let's skip to the good bit.
Natalie, I think she'll have that flair. She'll be a strong girl.
Big Ben. Sportsmen always go for it.
A weekend of Strictly Come Dancing starts next Friday night at 9 on BBC One and BBC One HD.
OK, we're being told now. This is I love these kind of myths and things like that. We're being told it wasn't her husband, it was actually a munchkin who decided to kill himself on the set of The Wizard of Oz, and apparently you can see it. I have the 8-second clip in front of me. I'm going to watch it. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. It's a load of old nonsense. Thank you very much indeed. That's wasted 7 seconds. 7 seconds of airtime, Kelly Betts. It's nonsense. I'm not watching the wrong clip. I'm reading an article. It's when they're skipping down the road, is it?
It is,
yes.
yeah.
There's an article from The Telegraph, The Wizard of Oz. Google it. The Wizard of Oz and the real story of the hanging munchkin. So it is complete and utter nonsense. But thank you so much, Kelly.
Anytime.
You're welcome. We've filled up 3 seconds of airtime. Back to this, the Daily Mail. Grand Theft Auto 5, which I think was released yesterday. You're lucky I'm here, as I've been sent my copy. Now, I knew that the Daily Mail, it's not just 2 pages, it's 2.5 pages. A game that spawns violence, torture and murder with the addictive glamour of Hollywood. They've already tried to link it to the shooting of 12 people in the United States of America, despite the fact he did the shooting before the game was released. So, that's... James Dellingpole has... My verdict. He's basically played the game a little bit and reviewed it. It normalises extreme violence and cruelty, so the longer you play, the more you not only become inured to it, but start to find yourself gripped and even sickly amused by the action unfolding before your parents. As a middle-aged parent, I like to think I'm mature enough to be able to appreciate the game's violence. But whether the game's teenage target market is so readily capable of making such distinctions, I'm not sure. It's got an 18 rating on it. An 18 rating, which I would suggest means that 17 and 16-year-olds could probably get away with playing it. I was certainly watching X-rated films at that age. But if parents are allowing their 11, 10, 9-year-old kids to play it, then that's their fault. You shouldn't be. He goes on to say, this is his last paragraph, and this is awful. The fact that this is the most popular computer game on the market should make us all shudder and pray that the violence on the screen doesn't bleed into Britain's streets. Pray that the violence on the screen doesn't bleed into Britain's streets. It won't. There will be nut jobs that will go out and will kill people and will stab people and will shoot prostitutes. That will happen anyway, whether this game comes out or not. There are dangerous reporters like Mr. James Dellingpole who will try and draw a link between the two. 08459 455 555. You can have your say on that if you want. Now, the owner of last year, 173 stray dogs were put down in the 3 counties after they were abandoned by their owners. Those figures come from our local authorities. And the owner of a Bedfordshire kennel says her experience suggests the problem with stray dogs is getting worse. That's even though figures released by the Dogs Trust today suggest nationally the number of strays is dropping. But Julie Shelton, who owns Appledown Kennels in Eaton Bray, says the problem has got worse this summer.
It is awful. This is the busiest we have ever known it. I've spoken to other people in rescue kennels and stray kennels, and they're all saying the same. We have never, ever had as many dogs as this.
Can you put a figure on it?
We probably have somewhere around about 70 dogs here at the moment, strays and rescue, and we had never got above 58 up until the beginning of the summer.
Nationally, the trend seems to be a fall in the number of strays, but are places like this always under pressure, no matter what the situation?
We're always under pressure. I think the problem is the figures that you're seeing nationally or that will be coming out were for last year. And yes, it was marginally down, but only marginally down. It's stayed steady at the start of this year, and then from the beginning of the summer has gone very, very busy. And I think that will be a national trend that will show up from who I've spoken to. But we're never calm and quiet.
And is this down to the economic recession?
No, that's a complete excuse. It's the fact that people get dogs without giving it any thought. They don't research the breed of dog they get. They treat them as a disposable item and get rid of them. We had one thrown into our car park yesterday. It's people's attitude, I'm afraid. It's nothing to do with anything else. It is entirely down to the type of people that get dogs.
We can talk now to Elvira Mucci-Lyons, who's head of campaigns at the Dogs Trust. Good morning, Elvira.
Good morning.
Your research shows a downward trend nationally in the number of strays, but that doesn't seem to be borne out locally. Has the situation changed in the past couple of months, do you think?
Well, we will only know really the, sort of next year, but there has been a decrease, but it is a marginal decrease, as we were hearing before, and there's still an awful lot of dogs out there that are being sort of left, abandoned, unwanted for a variety of reasons.
Well, what are some of those reasons, Elvira? I can't imagine why anybody would have a pet and then get rid of it.
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, it is a combination of factors, and that's why it's so hard to address it. The first and foremost, it is that people still think of dogs as disposable items. Absolutely right. They don't think of the consequences of getting a dog. A dog is for life. We always say that at Dogs Trust, but also you've got to think 15-odd years, cost of veterinary care, cost of food, everything, effort, time to take it out. So they don't think it through. They don't think about the breeds, the training and all that. But there are other factors, to be fair. There's the factor that people do their best by their dog and then find themselves that they have no money to keep this dog. Or the dogs get sort of lost and never get back to the owner because, unfortunately, microchipping is still not as high as we want it to be.
A significant number of stray dogs are being put down by local authorities. Are you concerned about those figures?
Do you know, local authorities are working in very difficult circumstances, and we never ever point fingers because we see how much work in the last 10, 15 years they've put into sort of getting that figure further down every year. So, yes, it is very sad to see that still dogs are being put down for want of a good home, but we can't blame the local authorities. They are overwhelmed, as are organisations across the UK for animal welfare.
You mentioned microchipping. The government's going to introduce compulsory microchipping of dogs by 2016. Are you in favour of that?
Absolutely. We've been lobbying for many, many years, and we are extremely happy that this is coming in 2016 and 2015 in Wales. In the meantime, we would urge dog owners to make the most of all the free microchipping schemes that organisations like ourselves have been offering and are still offering across the UK.
Are there regional differences in the way that strays are caught?
Not so much the way strays are caught, but we do see fluctuations in stray numbers because there's differences in the way dogs are looked after and perceived across the country. But every local authority should have a dog warden service, and anyone picking up a dog has to refer back to dog warden, because the dog has to go to dog warden for at least 7 days, 5 days in Northern Ireland.
We heard from Julie Shelton there, who owns kennels in Eaton Brain. I was shocked when she said that just yesterday they'd had someone chuck a dog into the car park, and they got 8 dogs in total yesterday. One of them was just chucked into the car park.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunately, you'll be shocked to hear that it's no surprise to us. We get dogs chucked into our reception downstairs at head office, and it is like that. People sometimes mean well by putting in the reception of our dog welfare organisations, but it is mostly because people just don't think. They
just turn up and drop a dog off, then walk away.
They literally do that, and sometimes they even pretend it's not their dog.
Oh, I just found this wandering around. Would you like it, kind of thing?
Exactly. Well, the poor dog looks, that's my owner kind of thing, but no.
Yes, well, Elvira, thank you very much indeed. That's Elvira Mucci-Lyons, who's the head of campaigns at the Dogs Trust. It does astound me how anybody can do that. And well, listen, if you get a big dog, they are well expensive, aren't they? Have you seen how much food they eat? Blooming Benjamin Bunny is eating me out of house and home at the moment. But how can you do that? My cat, and even Benjamin Bunny, who's a nuisance, they're parts of my family. I couldn't just get rid of them now. Couldn't get rid of them. I was a bit concerned because my cat didn't turn up for breakfast this morning. I'm a little bit worried about her. But why do people do that? 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call on that. You can also go to facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can also, by the way, if you want to take part in the show, or you've got a story that you think we should be doing on the show, big or small, you can send me an email directly to me, and I'll forward it on to my team to check it. No, I won't. I'll read it. Iain.lee, IAIN.LEE @bbc.co.uk. I reply to your emails, don't I, Kelly?
Sometimes, yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. That wasn't all the time, yeah?
Most of the time, yeah.
There we go. So all the time I reply to Kelly Bett's email. So if you want to send me an email with something you think we should be doing on the show, and it can be a huge thing that's covering the whole country, or it can be a tiny thing that's just affecting you, then do send me an email, Iain, IAIN.LEE @bbc.co.uk, and we'll have a little look at it, and we'll see if it's right for this show, and if it's not, we'll see if it's right for any of the other shows, and we will forward it to the appropriate people. 7:29, BBC Three Counties Radio. Let's get the travel news now. Here's Adam.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Heavy traffic anti-clockwise on the M25 Waltham Abbey to Potters Bar going into the roadworks, but the bigger problems are further round anti-clockwise. An accident just after junction 19 at Watford means that lane 4 is still blocked just after the junction, and congestion is back to St Albans at junction 22. So the congestion coming toward that accident nearly back into the roadworks, which of course start at junction 23. It's taking at least 45 minutes to get through the traffic, possibly a little longer. Starting to get very slow on the M1 as well. Traffic from Luton Airport toward Redbourne, junction 10 to 9 on the cameras, and as you continue down toward London, past junction 7 at Hemel Hempstead toward the M25 at junction 6. That of course is going to then get caught up in the congestion caused by the anti-clockwise accident. If you're using the A1 into London, that is slow southbound, usual spot with a queue from the Holiday Inn junction in Boreham Wood down toward Mill Hill Circus. Trains and tubes, though, running well. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much indeed. It's 7:30. I'm intrigued by this hanging munchkin. I've seen it now. I can see it. But then they would have seen it as they would... Here it is, zoomed. You go listen to the news. I'll come back with evidence in a second.
Across beds, hearts and bugs.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 7:30 with the headlines. I'm Catherine Boyle. Senior police officers have backed the idea of locking up the drunk and disorderly in privately run cells for which they'll incur a charge. Luton detectives are questioning two 18-year-olds arrested in connection with Friday's fatal stabbing in Hastings Street. And a report by MPs has recommended that the number of nurses on duty in every English hospital should be collected and published in a bid to avoid a repeat of the Stafford Hospital scandal.
Three Counties Sports.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Manchester United manager David Moyes says Wayne Rooney could become the club's all-time leading goal scorer. Rooney scored twice, including his 200th goal for United during their 4-2 victory over Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League last night. Manchester City also got their European campaign off to a successful start. They were 3-0 winners over the Czech side Victoria Pilsen. City's goals were scored by Edin Dzeko, Yaya Toure and Sergio Aguero. In the Championship last night, Lewis McGugan helped to secure a 2-1 win for Watford at home to Doncaster. Hornets boss Gianfranco Zola said he'd made some key changes.
Yeah, no, it's important. Some of them were necessary because we had few injuries around, so it's but it's important. I said it first place that the depth of the team this year is good, and I can afford to make changes and still get a good quality.
Luton Town were 3-0 winners at home to Dartford in the conference with goals from Paul Benson, Luke Guttridge and Alex Lawless. Hatters boss John Still says his side looked good from the start.
Our movement was so good, we moved the ball so quick, and I thought it would be a matter of time before we scored, and obviously Paul scored. Then we got the one from Luke, which was a deflection, but pleased with Jim Stevenson as well, come in, and Parry, I'm been really pleased, and I want to keep pushing these younger players that we've got. We will see one or two more introduced, I think, in the next few weeks as well.
In the Skrill South, Boreham Wood lost 2-0 at Farnborough, while in the Southern Premier, Hemel Hempstead stayed top after thrashing Bashley, Ian Lee's favourite, 4-1.
Bashley!
And Chesham a second after beating Bedford 3-0. And that's your latest news and sport. I'll be back with more at 8 o'clock.
Do you think anybody is old enough to get that reference, or should I just knock it on the head?
I think some people are.
OK.
He was very good, wasn't he?
He was good. You're not buying this hanging munchkin in Wizard of Oz, are you?
No, it's a bird or something, isn't it?
Well, have you seen it?
Well, I've seen what they say is it. I've seen something in the background, but...
It does. Listen,
it's a bit of an oversight considering the amount of money and attention they spent on that film.
And also, surely the Tin Man... No, he was an idiot. Which one was an idiot? No, the lion was the idiot.
The Scarecrow was the idiot. The lion was the coward.
The coward, and the Tin Man was just...
he wanted a heart. He was a romantic old Hector.
Yeah, it's a terrible film, isn't it?
I love it.
Oh, goodness gracious.
It is a bit rubbish, though.
But why... anyway, let's not go down that avenue of questioning. But they would notice it, weren't they? They would notice that there is a hanging munchkin in front of them as they trip merrily down the yellow brick.
Also, what was a munchkin doing on set? There were no munchkins involved in that scene. They'd have all been sitting in the back smoking fags and doing all sorts, according to Judy Garland.
Doing all sorts is correct. They were doing all sorts, weren't they?
They were.
Naughty
devils.
So-and-sos.
Call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
We're talking about films this morning, films you wish you'd seen at the cinema. We'll speak... Richard Fitzwilliams is coming on in a bit. Fantastic. He's my favourite film person. Always a pleasure. And also Scottish independence. It's a year to the day that the Scotch get to vote on independence. I think it's kind of important that we look at it, because it will be a significant thing. But, well, hang on. Will it be a significant thing for people in England and you in beds, hearts and bucks? Does it concern you at all? We were scratching our heads in the office yesterday about whether we should do this, how much we should do about it, and whether you would be interested or concerned about it. There's even a dance that goes with that. You concerned. So what do you think? I need your answers on this. 08459 455 555. Scottish independence. Are you bothered? It's a good enough question. Grand Theft Auto 5 came out yesterday. It's a very violent game. It's an adult game. Steve's in Bedfordshire. Morning, Steve.
Good morning, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Steve. I'm looking forward to going home later on and having a little bit of Grand Theft Auto this evening when the kids are safely in bed.
Yeah, I think you've got it completely wrong about these video games. I watch video games and they completely take over my life. When I play a video game, I want to put on my green shorts, jump on a horse and go out and try to find Robin Williams' daughter.
Hang on, I'm trying to remember...
Think about it.
I'm trying to think.
Robin Williams' daughter.
You're talking about Zelda, of course.
Yes.
Yes, there we go, you see. His Robin Williams' daughter is called Zelda after the video game Zelda. It took a while. I got there.
It's a load of rubbish.
The thing is that there are always going to be nut jobs, OK? And there are always going to be nut jobs that get hold of games, that get hold of guns or get hold of knives or go and kill people. And to say that it's video games that's causing it, I think is disingenuous. Anything could cause it. Mark Chapman read Catcher in the Rye and that prompted him to shoot John Lennon. No one called for the banning of books, did they?
No, I mean, they had all this while ago about Tom and Jerry, about the violence in Tom and Jerry, trying to ban that. They always pick on something. it's just a load of rubbish, really.
They should have banned Tom and Jerry when that cat and that mouse started talking. That's when it took a turn for the worse. I think. Terrible. Steve, thank you very much indeed. Listen, if you are... I'm not suggesting that violent games don't have an impact on your emotions and the way you feel and perhaps some of your thoughts, but to blame them for gun crimes, I think is a little bit unfair. I think you have to blame mental illness, lack of social care, lack of responsible people dealing with that mental illness. Or am I being naive? I'm not, but I'm going to give you that gateway to calling up. 08459 455 555. Now, what film do you wish you'd seen at the cinema? A survey out today names these movies at the top 3. Psycho, The Wizard of Oz, which I now, after today's debate about the hanging munchkin, wish I'd seen, and Gone with the Wind. Well, Justin Dealey spoke to cinema goers about the films they wished they'd seen on the big screen.
The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind.
Why The Wizard of Oz?
Because it goes into colour, went from the black and white to the magical of the colour. I would love to have seen that. Love to have seen it, the original, in the day when it came out.
And Gone with the Wind, though, mind you, after 3 hours you get a sore backside, wouldn't you? At least if you're watching it at home, you can go and make yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, something like that.
No, I think seeing something in the cinema is it's absolutely brilliant. You can't beat it.
Italian Job. Michael Caine, Minis.
The Lord of the Rings films, I never really got a chance to see them at the cinema. I only saw them when they came out on DVD, so I wish I saw those at the cinema.
Amy, you're the second person tonight to mention Gone with the Wind. What would have been so special about watching that film at the cinema?
Just seeing it on the big screen. Something about the whole love affair and the big story. It would have been great to have seen it on the big screen, definitely.
Probably E.T. I just saw a very sort of scratchy video of it many years ago.
And you're here with your partner tonight. Would you go along with that then? E.T.?
Yeah, definitely. I saw it recently on television and I cried my eyes out. Yeah, it's just such an emotional film, and it's such a... Well, it appeals to adults and children, so it's a good real family film.
Brilliant. What are you off to see tonight, by the way?
We're off to see Rush. Is it 1976 it's set in, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the year we got married.
Ah, right.
And I was a big James Hunt fan. And Nicky
I was a big Grand Prix fan, so I actually saw them racing quite regularly in those days. So brings back a lot of memories.
Come on then, Nick. Give me your film titles.
I'm going to say 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. Exorcist as well. Old school horror, revolutionary.
You look a bit creepy with them eyes when you're telling me about these films as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's not a compliment. Do you know what? I actually know somebody who saw The Exorcist. The first night it came out, it was in Leicester Square, and they came out and they said that everyone was being sick outside. Now, based on what you just heard there, would you still have wanted to see that at the cinema?
Yeah, I think so. It's just like with nowadays horror, like the censorship has sort of died. People are more used to this sort of stuff, so I think going back with now sort of ideals of horror, I think be all right with that sort of stuff.
You got a girlfriend?
No.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
No worries.
Well, I'm joined now by my favourite film critic and social commentator, Richard Fitzwilliams. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning. I've been absolutely fascinated, I must tell you, because this is a subject that I've long debated over. The way a film should be seen, where obviously you're looking to see it in the cinema, and the way we live now, it so often doesn't permit time, the cost, and all the problems involved in making it to the cinema for a lot of people.
Part of the problem, I think, Richard, is cinema is so expensive.
Especially if you're looking at certain very popular films in 3D, which makes it even more expensive. But yes, no, you're absolutely right. But on the other hand, there are certain films that demand seeing on the larger screen.
Give me some examples.
Well, Lawrence of Arabia. If you think of all those epics in the 1960s, from Ben-Hur to Waterloo, that takes you over about a dozen years. They were all made for the large screen. Just as westerns, whether it was Cheyenne Autumn or whether it was The Unforgiven, whether it's My Fair Lady and West Side Story, Chicago, all these, the experience is there, the sound, and of course they experimented with Cinerama and various other large screens, but the idea then, of course, was to draw people away from the small television set. On the other hand, I have to concede, the way we live now is different. Film critics sometimes get links where they can't actually make it to a screening. They can watch it on the small screen. You've got the video, the DVD, you've got the television.
Well, we've got huge televisions now. Some people have TVs. Mine's 42 inches. Some people have 50, 60-inch televisions with fantastic sound systems.
Well, if you've got that, that's absolutely fine. I suspect as a percentage that number have it, but a lot of people do, and, good luck to them, because you want the largest screen possible. I mean, this is in fact an idea that's really taking off, and that's showing live opera and live theatre. I was at Turandot, the Royal Opera House production. This was on being shown on a screen in London last night, and there you must have the experience to have the large screen. But if you can't get that, this is the point. Should you download it? If not, why not? One of the saddest things I always hear is when people say, but I've seen such and such a film, but it was on a flight. I mean, that is the very last way you should see.
Well, you say is that the last way because you can get it. People watch films on their telephones now. Would you ever sit down and watch Casablanca on your phone, Richard?
Well, I would feel deeply ashamed even to entertain the thought, but I wouldn't deny if some people get pleasure from doing that. For example, I've seen it many times. If you want to see certain specific scenes, you look on YouTube, you see certain clips from films. If you want to do that, anything to make the cinematic experience in the age of social media more pleasurable. I mean, certain technological advances, if you look at the alternative to the epics I mentioned today, you look at the Batman movies, the Superman movies, you've got a whole variety of these science fiction type films, from Elysium to Pacific Rim, some great fun, some pretty dire. They do demand that large screen experience, but there's no doubt people download them and see them in all sorts of ways. And that's the way we literally are having to cope with a changing situation. I mean, most recently a film, and I would not recommend it, set in the Civil War, but a hallucinatory experience, A Field in England, opened on the same day on the cinema. DVDs were available. It was shown on television. This is, it seems, where we're moving to. I am in favour of more people seeing as many films as possible, but it's well worth remembering that the numbers of people going to the cinema is still on the up, and for that relief, a lot of thanks. Don't forget, after all, if it's a bad film and you don't like it and you're not in the cinema, you can always switch it off. Sam Goldwyn once memorably said, a widescreen just makes a bad film twice as bad.
We're demanding more, aren't we? Do you remember, there are people listening who will never have seen this, and well done them. In the 80s, they would show films like Lawrence of Arabia on TV with the hideous pan and scan, where you didn't see all of the picture. It would kind of move to whoever was talking.
Oh, this idea that you take even certain cuts from those films, it was horrible. I mean, that is a dreadful thing to do to a film.
That was a crime.
Like making a black and white film colour.
Oh, I hate it when they do that.
It's dreadful.
Laurel and Hardy are meant to be in black and white.
Of course they are, and this is an absolutely scandalous thing, but I do accept different films are being seen in different ways, and whereas, I mean, Before Midnight, Francis Ha, What Maisie Knew, I mean, just to mention three currently showing in London. Low budget, very, very sensitive films, relying on a good script, good cast. I mean, in this particular circumstance, it doesn't really desperately matter if you see them on DVD or you see them in the cinema. Of course, the latter experience is preferable, but the moment you get the wide screen, the moment you've got this use of the spectacle, the crowd sequences, I mean, that is part of the experience.
It's the experience, isn't it?
The cinema draws you to.
Richard, we're running out of time. Very quickly, just to go off on a slight tangent. Are you aware of the hanging munchkin in The Wizard of Oz?
I am not. Tell me more.
Well, I've been told by Kelly Betts, who works on this show, I use that term very loosely, that there is a scene where the characters are skipping down that yellow brick road, and in the background you can see a munchkin who hanged himself. And I've seen it, and it does look like there's something there.
I think this is rather one of these slightly apocryphal stories about the person with wearing the watch in Ben-Hur or something like that, which I must say I've never seen. Something obviously looks like that, but I can't imagine that this was some form of sadistic invention, that someone was having an in-joke. The Wizard of Oz is one of those experiences. This shows, of course, as some of those clips earlier were mentioning, that you had certain tremendous advantages of seeing the film in the cinema, the colour, and, the fact that you're wrapped up in the experience, and also that you can't be interrupted. Unless someone, of course, chooses to eat popcorn. That's always been a danger.
Richard, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Richard Fitzwilliams, film critic, social commentator, and a phrase I never use, but friend of the show. Thank you, Richard. It's 7:46. Let's get the travel news now with Adam.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
We've had a call about the A5 northbound at Markyate. We're hearing it might be partly blocked by a two-car accident around Hicks Road, affecting traffic heading on toward Dunstable. Certainly looking a little bit slow round there. M1 southbound busy, Luton to Redbourne, junction 10 to 9, then Hemel Hempstead to the M25, junction 7 to 6A. The Aylesbury Road in Wing, the A418 looking very busy between Church Street in Wing and the Wingrave Crossroads. It's because of roadworks. There are water main works around there causing some delays. A1M southbound slowing up from Stevenage, junction 8 to 7. The A1 into London still busy from the Holiday Inn junction to Mill Hill Circus. If you're going into London on the A40 eastbound, there's a queue that starts at the end of the M40 from the Swakeleys roundabout in Uxbridge pretty much all the way down to Gypsy Corner in Acton. The M25 anti-clockwise slow from back at the M11 through to Potters Bar in the works. Then we've still got one lane closed just after Watford junction 19 following an accident. Congestion back to St Albans at junction 22, and it is taking about an hour, if not more, to get through the traffic. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Adam, thank you very much. 7:47. It's Wednesday, the 18th of September. I'm Iain Lee. These are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Senior police officers have backed the idea of locking up the drunk and disorderly in private-run cells, for which they'll incur a charge. Luton detectives are questioning two 18-year-olds arrested in connection with Friday's fatal stabbing in Hastings Street. In sport, the chairman of World Snooker, Barry Hearn, has told world champion Ronnie O'Sullivan to prove his allegations of match-fixing or apologise. Coming up, we'll have more on Scotland being an independent country. Are you bothered? 08459 455 555. Before that, let's get the latest weather. Here's Kate Kinsella.
Beds, Herts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. Well, there's a bit of cloud around this morning, but it is gradually going to break up and give us some lovely sunny spells. It's an improvement on yesterday. The wind is lighter, we'll see more sunshine, and the temperature is going to be a little bit warmer as well. 16 Celsius, 61 degrees in Fahrenheit. Now, there may be one or two isolated showers as we head through the middle part of the day, but to be honest, it's fairly unlikely. Too many people will catch one of those. Now, overnight, it's going to get dry and clear quite quickly, so the temperature is going to drop down quite quickly. 6 Celsius, the predicted minimum, 43 degrees in Fahrenheit, and then through the early hours of tomorrow morning, the cloud increases from the west, and that's the arrival of our next weather system. Starting off cloudy for Thursday, and the rain, some of that quite heavy as well, and when it goes through, it's going to become quite windy as well. That's going to continue through much of the day until tomorrow evening, and it's just going to feel a little more miserable than it does today. Maximum temperature just 16 Celsius. That's 61 degrees in Fahrenheit. And that's your forecast.
Thank you very much.
If you've missed any of the programmes from the last week, you've missed things like this.
And your journey nearly came to a juddering halt where you had in effect, a breakdown triggered by a car crash with your then partner Jill.
But there is a way you can hear it all again.
I was drunk, I ran into some roadworks and she had a very bad head injury and nearly died.
Go to bbc.co.uk/Three Counties and click on Listen Again.
You know, you were nearly responsible for killing somebody. It's a really, really traumatic experience, I must say.
bbc.co.uk/Three Counties.
Video games are so dangerous. They encourage our children to be violent and indulge in selfish, awful, scummy behaviour, don't they? Wrong. I've just been sent a link. Kids buy Grand Theft Auto 5, help save man from burning house. Hello? Two brothers, aged 17 and 16, were out late last night in Toronto picking up Grand Theft Auto 5. That should have been the most exciting thing of the night, but no. They had to go and help save an old man's life on the way home. Returning from the store with their game, the pair came across a house on fire with a 70-year-old man trapped inside. They called 911, then bust down his front door to try and save the occupant. There you go, you see? There you go. 08459 455 555.
Call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Let's have a look at the front pages, shall we? The Times. Alarm over shortage of nurses on NHS wards. Hospitals urged to publish staffing levels. Oh dear. Patients are being put at risk. How many times in the last year have we used that sentence? Patients are being put at risk. Patients are being put at risk because hundreds of hospital wards do not have enough nurses to look after them properly. Analysis for The Times reveals that 43% of wards have a staffing level lower than 1 nurse per 8 patients, a red zone flagged by a recent government report. Oh dear. And then there's a picture of, Nick Clegg is batting out of his league slightly. Here's his wife visiting a primary school in Glasgow yesterday as the Lib Dem conference trundles on. It's a 5-day conference. It's only the Lib Dems. 5 days? What on earth are they getting up to up there? Well, so far, what have we got from the Lib Dem conference? Carrier bags will be 5 pence. School uniform will be a bit cheaper. Free school meals. Ladies and gentlemen, 5 days. The Guardian has a fantastic picture of the Costa Concordia. That their boat, what done, sunk. Every infant to receive free school meals, Clegg pledges. And there's something over there. I don't know what that is. There. The Daily Telegraph. There's the Miriam Gonzalez Durantes, Nick Clegg's wife. Again, sober up in drunk tank and pay £400 to leave. Drunks causing a nuisance in towns and cities will be held overnight in privately run drunk tanks and charged up to £400 under police leaders' proposals. Drinkers who get so intoxicated they cannot look after themselves will be cared for in holding cells until they sober up and charged for the pleasure. Well, we're hoping to speak to David Lloyd, the PCC for Hertfordshire, a little bit later on in the show, who, do you remember he came in a few months ago and talked about charging prisoners for staying in prison cells? We laughed, we scoffed. I told him he was a silly sausage. Well, I bet he's excited about this. I bet he's over the moon about this. We'll try and get him on if we can. I know he's a busy man, but we'll see. The suggestion has won the backing of some police and crime commissioners, I bet it has, who are keen to tackle alcohol-related problems and keep policing costs down. Let's do The Independent, and then we'll speak to Ray in a second. The Independent. Killing that sparked the London riots, the Mark Duggan inquest, and Coalition's Family Day, free school meals and marriage tax breaks. We'll have a look at the rest in a bit. I want to speak to Ray first. Morning, Ray.
Morning, mate.
How was St Albans today?
All right. Wet, damp, horrible.
Oh, no. Wet, damp and wonderful.
Is it? All right, then.
Was this Reg or Ray?
Reg.
Reg, I called you Ray and you answered to the name of Ray.
I know, it's like you must be getting old, mate.
Well, listen, tell me about it. I'm getting very old. I'm at that age, Reg, where I walk into a room and I can't remember what I walked into the room for.
Oh, you need incontinence pants then?
That may be what I walked in there for. Yes, now I remember. Too late. Reg, films you wish you'd seen at the cinema?
Well, it's got to be The Kingdom of Heaven, but the director's cut.
What's The Kingdom of Heaven?
It's that film what they panned with Orlando Bloom when he was doing, like, in the nights and that.
I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, fantastic film. Bit bloodthirsty, but good. Very good.
And did you see it on video?
Yeah, I've seen it on video. And that is, let's say, you've got to get the director's cut one because it's a lot better.
Right, OK. There's something about watching films in the cinema. There's the experience of it, isn't it? Of indulging in an experience with other people.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's a lot of people don't get it now, do they? You know, go to the pictures and that. I think the best film I ever saw at the pictures would be The Battle of Britain. Oh, there you go. You see, God, you are old, aren't you, Reg? Yeah, getting prehistoric, mate. Exactly. Reg, thank you very much indeed. The best film I saw at the cinema wasn't necessarily the best film. Actually, two films I saw at the cinema that were enhanced by being there with other people. One was a Jackie Chan film. I know, Rumble in the Bronx, the second time I've mentioned Jackie Chan. But I always watch... I do like karate films and kung fu films, and I watch them at home on my own or with a few mates. But watching it in a cinema in North London and hearing people cheering every time Jackie Chan kicked somebody's backside, oh, it was wonderful. It was like we were at a party. People cheering him on. Yes, get in there, Jackie. All of that going on. It was fantastic. The other film
I saw it at a cinema. It was what was it called? United 93? The film about the September the 11th attacks, and it was specifically about the aeroplane that the passengers brought down in a field. I saw that the week it was released in New York at a midnight showing. Wow. If you want to see... want to be involved in an emotional experience yet feel slightly detached from it, go and see a film about September 11th in New York at a midnight showing. It was incredible. At the end, I went with my brother-in-law, and at the end, I think it fades to black, and it just, when they bring the aeroplane down, I seem to remember it fades to black. I'm getting shivers thinking about it. Silence in the cinema, and then just people spontaneously sobbing. Oh, my goodness. What a powerful experience. And obviously, it's a shocking film to watch. But to watch it in New York, not 3 miles from where the towers came down, and to be sat in a dark room full of people who were probably there, who quite possibly lost people in that attack. Wow. That's when cinema's at its most powerful. I also enjoyed watching the latest Die Hard movie at the cinema. There is something about it. It's just so expensive. Why you charge so much? You can see why people are turning to video piracy, can't you? Turning to it. I watched E.T. in, what year was that? 1983, on a really bad Betamax copy with some scenes cut out of it. We couldn't really make out what was going on. I still sobbed like a baby. I've not watched it since. They redid E.T., didn't they? This is what they do in Hollywood. They redid E.T. to make E.T. They did it. They made E.T. look more realistic, and they cut the guns out. I know that seems odd. So E.T. suddenly's got more realistic facial expressions, and the FBI, when they're running around with guns at the end, no, they're not running around with guns. They're running around with torches. Why would you do that, Spielberg? There are some copies. I hate this rewriting history. There are some copies of, I think it's Abbey Road, the cover of Abbey Road, where Paul McCartney's cigarette has been airbrushed out. Oh, no. Don't do that, for goodness sakes. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. You can also go to facebook.com/BBC3CR. On the subject of films that you wish you'd seen in the cinema, as opposed to ones you'd watched on television, I don't think this gentleman's taking the argument seriously enough at all. James Sharp, no, not James Sharp, sorry. Who is it? It's Nick Church says, I wish I'd seen Rocky 4. Now, come on, please. 08459 455 555. 7:58, let's get the travel news now. Here's Adam.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Anti-clockwise M25 is queuing from the M11 to Potter's Bar. That's going into the roadworks, but of course we've got problems further round this morning. There's been an accident just after Watford at junction 19. It's still blocking lane 4 just after the junction, and congestion is back to St Albans junction 22. It's taking over an hour to get through the traffic there. Queues are still building. The M1 southbound slow from Flitwick to Redbourne junction 12 to 9, then slow again from Hemel Hempstead to the M25 junction 7 to 6A. A1M southbound is slow past Stevenage at junction 8 and 7. The A1 into London is busy from the Holiday Inn junction in Boreham Wood to Mill Hill Circus, and we're still hearing these reports of problems in Markyate. The A5 partly blocked both ways by a 2-car accident around Hicks Road. We've had a second call come in on that. Thank you to Mr Oakes, who called us with information. Looking at the trains and tubes, no problems reported. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. £400 to stay in a drunk tank overnight? Well, it would ease pressure on the police. Good idea? Or do you think it's outrageous? We'll speak to you after the news with Catherine Boyle.
Local and vocal across beds, hearts and bucks.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
It's 8 o'clock. The headlines: drunk tank plans criticised, teenagers arrested over Luton stabbing, and Hertfordshire headmaster claims boarding schools could be the cheaper option.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Alcohol awareness charities are criticising senior police officers' calls for the introduction of so-called drunk tanks. People found to be drunk and disorderly would be held in cells run by private companies for which they'd pay a charge upon release. Gary Topley runs a project for alcoholics in treatment and fears the scheme could become a money-making exercise.
Does it then then stretch to people going out on Christmas parties. If people are over the influence and acting a bit rowdy, do they arrest a crowd of 10, 15 people for drunk and disorderly and then charge all them as well? I think that's got to be, a lot more clearer, a lot more grey areas have got to be put right.
2 18-year-old men have been arrested by police investigating last Friday's fatal stabbing in Luton. 19-year-old Micah Urquhart was found seriously injured a short distance from his home in Hastings Street. He died at the scene. Bedfordshire Police are continuing to appeal for witnesses. The NHS is being urged to be much more open about staffing levels in a bid to avoid a repeat of the Stafford Hospital scandal. MPs on the Health Select Committee are suggesting a notice is put up in every hospital ward saying how many nurses are on duty every day. This committee's chairman is Stephen Dorrell.
Openness should be the routine culture of the health service. That's what we say. We're in favour of openness, but not just when things go wrong. Openness at all times. That provides, apart from anything else, that then provides a context so people can see what's going on in a ward, in a care home, in a doctor's surgery. It's the culture of secrecy and defensiveness that underlies many of the problems the health service has had over the years.
There's concern this morning that the number of abandoned dogs may be on the rise in Bedfordshire. The Dogs Trust is reporting a marginal decrease nationally, but according to the owner of Eaton Bray's Appledown Kennel, there's been a marked increase in the number of strays they've taken in this summer. And Julie Shelton dismisses the idea that the current economic climate is a factor.
No, that's a complete excuse. It's the fact that people get dogs without giving it any thought. They don't research the breed of dog they get. They treat them as a disposable item and get rid of them. We had one thrown into our car park yesterday. It's people's attitude, I'm afraid. It's nothing to do with anything else. It is entirely down to the type of people that get dogs.
Sending a child to boarding school could be more cost-effective than shuttling children to many different sports and activities, according to a leading headmaster from Hertfordshire. Ray McGovern from St George's School in Harpenden says that boarding schools are not elitist and insists they can be a good option for working parents, single-parent families and people living in rural areas. Sport now, and in the Championship last night, a late penalty gave Watford a 2-1 win over Doncaster at Vicarage Road. Meanwhile, Luton Town were 3-0 winners at home to Dartford in the conference. The weather today, sunshine with a chance of isolated showers and a top temperature of 16 degrees Celsius. That's 61 degrees Fahrenheit. You can get the latest news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties.
Boarding schools are a terrible idea for parents who love their children.
Oh.
Do you not think, why have kids and then not see them for 3 months at a time?
It wouldn't be right for me.
Oh, look at you. Well sat.
No, but I think that it's different culture, isn't it? I had friends that went to boarding school and it was just what was done, and they were really... their family almost became the people they went to school with. It's not for me, but for some people it's just the way it is.
Wise words from Catherine Boyle. Boarding school is not for people who love their children. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Lots coming up. Police chiefs are calling for privately run drunk tanks to be considered to help tackle alcohol-fuelled disorder. Well, we'll be speaking to David Lloyd, the Police and Crime Commissioner of Hertfordshire, who's missed a train to speak to us this morning, so we'll get to him shortly. Kennels in Beds, Herts and Bucks are full of strays. Why do people abandon their dogs? And what films did you not see at the cinema that you think, oh, that would have been good on the big screen? Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send me a text, 81333. Start your text 3CR. Or you can give me a call, 08459 455 555.
Across Beds, Herts and Bucks.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Drunk tanks. What do you think? Good idea? They're a suggestion from the Association of Chief Police Officers. It says more needs to be done to tackle a culture of drinking to excess and alcohol-related crime. ACPO says 50% of all violent crime involves alcohol, and dealing with it costs the police £11 billion a year. Chief Constable Adrian Lee is the national policing lead on alcohol harm. He's backing the introduction of these so-called drunk tanks. Troublemakers who are drunk and disorderly will be locked up in cells run by private firms, who then recoup the cost by charging them in the morning. According to the Daily Telegraph, people would be charged up to £400 a night, and they'd also face a fine. Not everyone thinks the plan would work. Gary Topley used to drink heavily and is an alcohol awareness specialist. He told me earlier on he thinks this is a money-making exercise and simply won't work.
Personally, there is a one-size-fits-all approach, and people have to be dealt with individually. Then you've got to look at how it's going to be implemented. You know, if for example, you said £400. How's that going to be implemented? What if these people are on benefits? Are they going to pay back like £1 a week back? Obviously, then they're going to lose money because not everyone's going to pay it. So it's reinforcing that as well to try and get the money back.
Oh, joined now by the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire, David Lloyd. Good morning, David.
Morning, Ian. Nice to speak to you.
Thank you for missing a train for us. It's very much appreciated.
Always willing to do so for you.
What do you think about this? A good idea?
I think it's a good idea. It works exactly along the same lines as what I've been talking about in my plan, Everybody's Business, and that's really about putting responsibility back into people's hands. If you want to go out and get drunk at night, fine, but if you want to go out and get drunk at night, you are going to cause problems to other people quite often, and if you do, let's find a way of clearing this up. I think this is a great idea because what it does is it gives proportionate justice very swiftly. You stay overnight in what you like, if you like, a portable police cell. You pay for it in the morning. Job done.
Now, you say affordable. According to one of the papers, I'm just trying to find, it's The Telegraph, it could be £400 a night. That's the price, as I'm sure you're aware, of a very fancy hotel with breakfast thrown in. That's not going to be affordable to a lot of people, is it?
Well, I didn't say affordable, I said proportionate, but we're down.
I do apologise, sorry, I misheard you.
However, I think that if it makes people change what they're doing and the way they're doing it, that is well and good. Because actually, at the end of the day, these people cost society money. That's what it costs to stay overnight. That's what you pay. Now, I don't know the exact figures they're going to come out with. It's just an idea, but it does seem like a good idea to me. And people who don't like these ideas always try and sort of work out, well, is it going to be £1 a week or whatever? Let's get the idea in place first. Let's just establish that this makes good sense, and once we've established that it makes good sense, then let's work out the details.
It's not going to help people who have serious alcohol addiction problems, is it? And they're going to be punished even more.
Well, I think the people with serious alcohol addiction problems probably aren't the people out on the streets getting very, very drunk every night. But if they are, there are various different strands. I think this can help. It's one of many ways of helping, because if you know that this is going to cost you £400 every night you get put away, if that is the figure, that should be a deterrent in itself. But of course, what I'm about is trying to bring all partners together so that we actually stop crime before it happens. I don't want to stop people having a good time. I enjoy drinking a pint of beer myself. But what I'm saying is we need to make sure that everything's proportionate and that people don't commit crime.
Don't we need to start earlier, David, and change the culture? I mean, listen, one of the worst things I hate is going out on a Friday night and you see a load of drunk idiots running around and shouting and showing their bums and stuff like that. I don't want to see that. But don't we need to start younger and earlier and change the culture a bit?
Definitely we need to change the culture, and we need to work alongside health colleagues so that they are, and education colleagues, so that we all, and parents come to that, so that we are giving the right signals to children early on about what is and what is not acceptable. And we do have a binge drinking culture in this country. It's one that we've got to try to change. This might be one good way of helping to change it.
David, thank you very much. I appreciate you going that extra mile for us and missing a train. It's very kind of you. It's David Lloyd. He's the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire. He thinks it's a good idea. I suspected he would. I have a couple of concerns. The concern is the cost, £300 to £400 a night. That's more than a night at the Ritz. And the fact it's being run by private firms. With the police, they know what they can and they can't do. Yes, sometimes they bend those rules. But they know what they can and they can't do. Private firm, you put some ordinary blokes in a uniform and give them the keys to a cell. That concerns me slightly. But then again, I don't go out in towns on a Friday or Saturday night because I feel intimidated by a load of, as I say, drunk blokes. It's not just drunk blokes running around, flashing their backsides and, hey, you're that bloke off the telly! 08459 455 555. What do you think? Well, I'm joined now by Adam May, who's the former Director of Development for Street Angels. Morning, Adam. Just briefly describe to the listener what Street Angels is.
Yes, good morning, Ian. It's good to be with you. Street Angels is a national initiative that's run by churches encouraging volunteer street patrols, so going out onto the towns and cities of this country on a Friday and Saturday evening simply to be a non-judgmental listening presence. And as I say, there's quite a few of them operating in Beds, Herts and Bucks.
What do you think about this idea of drunk tanks? Do you think it's a good one? Will it have any impact?
As the kind of former director of development for Street Angels, I worked very, very closely with the Association of Chief Police Officers in a piece of work they did looking at volunteer street patrols. So the kind of a call that's come out today doesn't surprise me, to be honest, Ian. But whether it will work on, I'm very sceptical about the idea, and can I tell you why?
Yeah, please do.
When I was in Bedford, I led the Bedford Street Angels project, and in Bedford, one of the things that was being looked at is how do we move from a culture of from binge to better was the kind of tagline. And so we're looking at other examples across the country, which was something that ACPO were doing at that time, was to create safer spaces, not drunk tanks or drink tanks, but safer spaces, so places where people could go. And I saw with ACPO different places, but they were put back in the hands of the community, and in some places back in the hands of the church. And so, the best example that I saw was in Brighton, where they basically open up their safe place between 10 and 4 or even 6. And basically people just go in there and sit and sober up. So there's games consoles, and that kind of thing. And actually, the sense that it was put back in the hands of community.
Hang on, Adam, were you saying that the churches in Brighton were inviting drunk people into PlayStation?
They were. But
and did that work, or did that work, or did the people that were going there look at it as kind of an after-hours club?
No, it really worked, actually. I only went to Brighton a couple of times to see what they were up to, but in the times that I went, it seemed to be very well received, and the question was, how could we bring that back to Bedford? And because the idea for Bedford was there, they wanted to create a safe space, and so we looked at a venue at the top of the on the high street in Bedford, very central, so it wasn't kind of one of these things that was hidden away. It would have been put on the high street. The police were very happy to put money in to make it happen, and so were the other partners. But sadly, as things stand, it hasn't happened, and that's a shame, because actually somewhere like Bedford and other places across the county would benefit from a safer space. I was reading with the report this morning in The Guardian on this, that, setting up mobile police units and triages, that's fairly common. I mean, it happens in Bedford every Christmas, but we need to do something, as I say, to tackle the kind of the sobering up period. I like you have reservations over these drink cards.
Could this just be a way of generating cash? I mean, with bits of the NHS kind of, in inverted commas, being privatised and Royal Mail being privatised, is this just another way to make a few quid, do you think?
I think it probably is, and I suspect that nobody would ever say that, and police and crime commissioners wouldn't say that, but actually, it probably is. The question is, it's about, I shared what you were saying just before you introduced me, Ian, about the fact that it's been run by private companies. I think the community have a response, and we need to take a partnership response. In Bedford, the Nighttime Economy Safeguarding Partnership that works with the police, the council, A&E, and all the usual suspects really works in Bedford. But and now there was a reticence when the church came and said we want to be part of that safeguarding partnership. Believe you me, and I got many a frosty reception to start with. But when it really was the community working with the community, it was well received.
Adam, thanks very much. Nice to talk to you. Adam May, who's the former Director of Development for Street Angels. What do you think? Load of drunks, kicking off in the street, bag them in a drunk tank. They wake up in the morning, got a pounding headache. Can we go now? Yeah, of course you can. Just one thing, here's your bill. £400? Yep, that's right. 08459 455 555. What do you think? Is it a good idea? Are you intimidated? Too intimidated to go out in your local town on a Friday or Saturday night because you're a little bit concerned about what you might come across? I don't like it. I hate... I went out to see a band in London a few weeks ago with my sister on a Friday night. Oh, it was awful. It was horrible. There's all these drunk idiots in the... Oh, it's disgusting. But is that just because I'm an old man? I used to get, drunk in the street. I don't know. 08459 455 555. It's 8:15 or thereabouts. It's BBC Three Counties Radio. Let's get the travel news now. Here's Adam Glynn.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Queues on the M25 anti-clockwise from the M11 through to Potters Bar, junction 27 to 24. Once you get beyond there, through the roadworks, you're then going to encounter severe delays. There was an accident a bit earlier this morning, just after Watford at junction 19. Now, small mercy, all lanes have at least reopened. Lane 4 was blocked for quite a while this morning. It has now been cleared, but the congestion still very much present back as far as St Albans at junction 22, and on average it's taking just over an hour to get from St Albans past Watford. The A1M southbound looking slow round Stevenage, junctions 8 and 7, into London delays from the Holiday Inn junction Borehamwood down to Mill Hill Circus. M1 southbound slow Flitwick to Redbourne on the cameras, also slow Hemel Hempstead to the M25. The A40 into London is really busy this morning with queues from the Swakeleys roundabout in Uxbridge to Gypsy Corner in Acton, and in Markyate the A5 has been partly blocked both ways. An accident with 2 cars involved near Hicks Road, affecting traffic heading toward Dunstable, also affecting that southbound traffic. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. 8:16, it's Wednesday the 18th of September. I'm Iain Lee. These are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Alcohol charities are criticising senior police officers' calls for the introduction of so-called drunk tanks, suggesting the scheme could become little more than a cash cow. Luton police are questioning 2 18-year-old men arrested in connection with last Friday's fatal stabbing in Hastings Street. Watford beat Doncaster 2-1 in the Championship last night, while Luton Town were 3-0 winners at home to Dartford in the conference. Coming up, Scotland. Should it be an independent country? And a side question to that, do you care, Beds, Hearts and Bucks? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Some people say that we get a bit too excited about our trails. So we're going to do this one a bit different. On Saturday, we've got 4 more live commentaries for you to choose from. Barnsley versus Watford, MK Dons away to Peterborough, Stevenage against Carlisle, and Luton host Lincoln. Plus reports on Wycombe against York. All our local teams live in Three Counties Sport, Saturday from 2 here on BBC Three Counties Radio.
They listened.
Relaxing sport.
Relaxing sport with music from an adult movie.
With Jeff and Luke.
They have listened to my... criticism is a strong word.
It's very strong and appropriate.
Yes. They have listened to my comments about the... Oh! It's a goal! It's a goal! Jeff! They have listened.
You don't like sport, do you?
And responded. I like.
No, it's not sports coverage. I'm not saying you don't like sports coverage.
I like them.
You don't like the concept of sporting endeavour.
Not particularly. I like those two gentlemen. They
Very nice chaps.
They bring a real buzz to the office that is otherwise lacking. I mean, it's dull as ditch water up there, isn't it?
Well, no, not when we're there. But you missed all that because what do you finish and then you're out the door?
I go straight
in bed by 9:05, something like that.
That's the fella.
Sleeping in your car again?
I do like a good doze in my car.
Yeah.
I will be sleeping in my car later on today, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Why is that?
I've lost my house in a gambling fiasco.
Oh, well. No,
Tim Wheeler,
what
on earth are you doing here?
Standing in for Jonathan for one day only, a one-day appearance. Jonathan back tomorrow and Friday.
What have you got on the show today?
Well, interested in what you've been discussing this morning about this drunk tank idea, the idea from police chiefs for an introduction of drunk tanks to tackle the alcohol-fueled disorder on our streets. I think, is it £400 a Telegraph are reporting
about that
people would have to pay to a private company if they were found drunk and disorderly on the street late at night. I'm going to be asking this morning, is there anything we can actually do to stop people binge drinking? Because I'm not convinced that the threat of a drunk tank, having spent some time
in prison.
No, but I, like anyone, I have definitely drunk to excess. I know lots of people that have drunk to excess. I don't think any of them would have realistically set out thinking they were going to end up in a prison cell. But then something has to be done because, I think it was probably about 2 months ago that I'd been out for a Chinese meal with some friends, and walking home, there was a girl in the gutter. She must have been in her mid-20s, and she was lying behind the car on double yellow lines, completely unconscious. But that people were walking past...
Classy, very classy.
Oh, really classy. People weren't doing anything at all. And so we thought, we can't go home without going and speaking to her. So we went along, we started kind of slapping her on the face to try and wake her up.
You gave her a round of applause.
I gave her a round of applause. Yeah. So we slapped her on the face, and eventually she started to stir, and she came around just enough to. I mean, said, where are your friends? Where are your friends? And she had no idea she'd lost all her friends. And if we hadn't have stopped to help her, and we waited, and an ambulance came. But when the ambulance came, I think there were 4 members of crew, and 2 ambulances turned up. And I just thought, what a waste of resources. Why are these 2 ambulances that could be saving someone's life elsewhere or taking an old person from their house to hospital? They are wasting their time with this 20-something-year-old girl who has just drunk till she's lost her mind. So I'm interested in trying to find solutions of how we can stop people from binge drinking, what will discourage people from just drinking to such a mad excess. And what's going to be quite interesting is just after 9, I'm going to be speaking to a guy who runs a nightclub in Luton, and he says we do have drinks offers, so you can buy, I think it's 9 drinks for 20-something quid, £22, I think, something like that. So you pay your £22 on the door, and then you get 9 drinks. They could be 9 vodkas, 9 whiskies, 9 pints. Should anyone really be going out with that expectation that they're going to drink 9 drinks in a night? Should they?
I don't drink.
You don't drink,
I'm
so
out of this.
But surely you can appreciate that having you have
very,
drunk,
very drunk.
9 pints. That's quite a lot, isn't it?
It's not bad going. It's a little starter.
Yeah. So, is there anything we can do to stop people binge drinking? That'll be from 9 o'clock this morning.
Call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, today marks 1 year to go until voters in Scotland take part in a referendum which will ask them the straight question, should Scotland be an independent country? But if the Scottish people do choose to break away, what will it mean for England? Well, to debate this, I'm joined now by Tony Gigliano, a specialist groups coordinator with Yes Scotland, and by Milton Keynes South MP Iain Stewart, who is from Scotland himself but is against independence. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Morning. Tony, why do you think it's important for Scotland to become independent?
Well, I think there's different strands of the argument. We talk about the democratic case for Scottish independence. It's the right that we put Scotland's future in Scotland's hands, that the people of Scotland are able to determine.
Tony, listen, the line isn't great, Tony. We're going to get you back in a second, so we'll get you on a different line. Iain, let's go to you. You're against Scottish independence.
Right.
Why?
Well, I just think there are lots of economic, social and cultural reasons that we should stay together. But for me, as someone who was born to Scottish parents and grew up in Scotland, but who's lived in England most of my working life, and through marriage in the family I've got many English relatives, my nationality is British, and I just don't want to see my country broken up.
There are lots, and I have Scottish relatives, there are lots of people in Scotland who feel very strongly that the focus of the British government seems to be not only on England, but primarily on London as well. There are people who feel left out.
Well, there's a separate argument to be had about how public spending is allocated throughout the United Kingdom. In any country, capital cities tend to attract the majority of resources. But that's a separate debate. We don't need to break up the United Kingdom to address that.
Iain, we've just got Tony back, I believe. Tony, can we hear you now?
Yes.
There we go. It's an important point, so I want to get it. Why do you think Scotland should become independent?
Well, I think it's right that we put Scotland's future in Scotland's hands, and the people of Scotland are able to take their own decisions based on Scotland's distinct economic needs. I mean, at the moment, we have a Tory government that we did not vote for. We have successive Tory governments that we did not vote for. So I think that there's a democratic case there, but from an economic case as well. And a fairness case, we have to look at why Westminster isn't working, and the reality is that it hasn't been working for Scotland. The paradox of child poverty at 22% in an oil-rich nation like Scotland is a scandal, and that, for me, encapsulates one of the biggest reasons why Westminster has failed for the people of Scotland.
And would that change, Tony, if Scotland were independent? Would you be having more funds that you could funnel into things like child poverty?
Well, absolutely. I mean, not only are we stronger financially, we would be stronger financially with independence, we would be able to, instead of wasting millions of pounds on renewing Trident, for instance, as one example, something that we simply would not do if we had the powers here in Holyrood. We'd take very different approaches in Scotland, and we have shown that over the past years with devolution. If the Scottish Parliament proves something, it is the fact that we do things differently, whether it's on education, south of the border, the Tories and Liberals are forcing young people to pay £9,000. We don't have tuition fees in Scotland because we believe that education is a right. So we take different approaches in Scotland. We have done with devolution, and it's only right that we continue to take that different path, also with defence, with foreign affairs. I mean, Europe is another example. I mean, we have a Conservative government that wants to take us out of Europe. We have ministers in the coalition government that want to take us out of Europe. The majority of people in Scotland want to stay in the European Union. It's a very, very clear in the European Union, and we want to take that different approach.
Iain, Tony makes a good point, doesn't he, that Scotland is a country and it is not having a proportional say in what happens to it.
Well, I would argue the reverse. I would say that Scotland punches above her weight by being part of the United Kingdom. I view that the strength of the United Kingdom is greater than the sum of its individual parts. And I think we have to think very carefully before we rip up a partnership, a union that's been a strong one for over 300 years. And the point made about finances is it's not proven what the true financial relationship is between Scotland and England, because we've never fully worked out how the last penny is spent or raised in taxes. And I just think it's going to be an absolute mess if we try and rip up a partnership that's been a huge success for many years.
In what way
is it? What you're saying is basically that it's too much of an inconvenience for the people of Scotland to be deciding their own. No, that's exactly what you're saying. It's too much. It's too inconvenient.
That is a ridiculous assertion.
That's what you've said.
You
said it's too much of a big deal, too much of an inconvenience.
There we have the Scottish nationalist argument. They just shout down anyone who...
Iain, you're speaking now. You're speaking now. So respond to Tony, please.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Well, respond to Tony's point.
Well, it's a ridiculous notion to suggest that this is just an inconvenience. There are going to be huge practical difficulties in breaking up. It could happen if that's what people wanted. But my argument is we don't need to do that. Scotland can be perfectly prosperous and free to express its identity within the bounds of the Union.
It's not working.
Well, that's your perspective. A lot of people disagree, and the polls are showing that you're losing the argument.
Their polls are actually showing that when undecideds hear the yes argument, they shift to yes.
Every poll,
you can dismiss what the people are saying on independence if you like. The reality
one at a time, gentlemen, please.
The matter is that when people hear the yes argument, even for instance on a Newsnight programme of the BBC itself that was on air last night, showed that when people hear about the argument of independence, they shift to yes.
Iain,
every recent poll has shown that as well.
Iain, again, I go back to the point. It must be frustrating to live in Glasgow or live in Edinburgh or live in the Hebrides, and all of the focus seems to be on London, a city that's in a different country. It must feel exclusive to a lot of Scottish residents.
No, I would argue if you look at the number of Scots who are in positions of power in the whole UK, we've had far more than fair share. And the point about capital cities dominating, I suspect if you ask people in the Highlands, in Orkney, in the Hebrides, does Edinburgh get too much resources, they'll probably agree with you.
Well, look, let me put it to you. You make a point of position of power. What position of power were Scottish MPs on voting on the bedroom tax? The vast majority, over 80% of Scottish MPs rejected the bedroom tax, but it was imposed by Westminster regardless. So even when Scottish MPs, never mind MSPs, go to Westminster with a completely different perspective on things, we are still voted down because we don't have the numbers. Now that is a clear democratic deficit. You have to accept it, regardless of whether Gordon Brown is a Prime Minister from Scotland or not, is an utter irrelevance. An utter irrelevance.
No, we do not have
it is. We don't have the numbers in the House of Commons.
Has voted for a Conservative government that had a Labour
Tony, let Iain just come back. We're running out of time. Iain, just come back on that point if you would.
No, there have been times when England has voted for a Conservative government, but because of the votes of the UK as a whole, it's been a Labour government that's been elected. There's an ebb and flow in these things.
OK, listen, we have to end it there, strictly because of time, but maybe we can get you both back on, as you obviously feel very passionate about it, and it's a fascinating debate. That was Iain Stewart, Conservative MP for Milton Keynes South, and the other gentleman you heard there was Tony Giuliano, who is Specialist Groups Coordinator with Yes Scotland. 8:30, BBC Three Counties Radio. Let's get the travel news now.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
M25 anti-clockwise, queuing from the M11 to Potters Bar, junction 27 to 24. Long delays also further round. We had that accident just after Watford, junction 19, which, although it's now gone, the congestion is still back to St Albans at junction 22. It's taking about 45 minutes to get through the queues, so traffic is easing a little bit, but not completely yet. A5 round Markyate, still partly blocked both ways because of a two-car accident near Hicks Road, affecting traffic heading to and from Dunstable, of course. The M1 southbound, slow-moving Flitwick to Redbourne, junction 12 to 9, and slow again Hemel Hempstead to London and the M25, junction 7 to 6. A1M southbound, busy past Stevenage at junction 8. Into London, slow, Boreham Wood from the Holiday Inn junction toward Mill Hill Circus. And it's looking rather busy in High Wycombe. The A40 is slow eastbound, approaching the junction with Lily's Walk. Trains and tubes, though, are still doing well. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Across beds, hearts and bugs.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning with the 8:30 headlines. I'm Catherine Boyle. Alcohol charities are criticising senior police officers' calls for the introduction of so-called drunk tanks, suggesting the scheme could become little more than a cash cow. Luton police are questioning two 18-year-old men arrested in connection with last Friday's fatal stabbing in Hastings Street. And the NHS is being urged to be much more open about staffing levels in a bid to avoid a repeat of the Stafford Hospital scandal.
Three Counties Sports.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Manchester United got this season's Champions League campaign off to a winning start as they beat Bayer Leverkusen 4-2 in Group A. Wayne Rooney scored twice, including his 200th for the club, with Robin van Persie and Antonio Valencia also getting on the score sheet for United. Captain Vincent Kompany made his return from a groin injury as Manchester City won 3-0 away to the Czech side Victoria Pilsen in Group D. City's goals were scored by Eden Dzeko, Yaya Toure and Sergio Aguero. In the Championship last night, a late penalty gave Watford a 2-1 win over Doncaster at Vicarage Road. Hornets boss Gianfranco Zola says his side need to build on their success.
We need to be, as I said, be patient, wait for our form to be better, and get points in games like this where they're very important. And so I think it's going to be a good lesson for all of us for the future.
Meanwhile, at Kenilworth Road, Luton Town were 3-0 winners at home to Dartford in the conference. Paul Benson, Luke Guttridge and Alex Lawless scored for the Hatters, and manager John Still has praise for his side.
I think Alex done very well, but I think we're seeing a fit of Paul Benson as well now. His movement is so good, it's so clever, brings so many people into play. So I think there's a bit of confidence in that as well, and I thought him and Luke Guttridge worked really, really well, really clever between the two of them, and we've got some better quality balls in the box today. Good performance.
Finally, in the Skrill South, Boreham Wood lost 2-0 at Farnborough, and in the Southern Premier, Hemel Hempstead stayed top after thrashing Bashley 4-1. And Cheshire second after beating Bedford 3-0. That's the latest news and sport. More from me at 9 o'clock.
Remind me of the boarding school story that we spoke about earlier.
There is a very prominent head teacher in Harpenden at St George's School in Harpenden, and he's saying that we should lose this image of boarding schools being elitist, and actually they can be a cheaper alternative for those parents who ferry their children about to various activities after school.
OK, and remind me what spurious point I made on the back of that.
You said only people that don't love their children send them to boarding school.
Right, OK. I've got lots of calls lined up about boarding school. I suspect that they probably won't be patting me on the back and congratulating me for speaking the truth, will they?
Well, you've got one answer for them. Harry Potter.
Yes, thank you!
Call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Last 30 minutes of the show, why don't you give us a call? Well, let's just take it easy, because I have lots of phone calls, shall we, between now and 9 o'clock. 08459 455 555. Drunk tanks, should we have them? Films, video games, are they too violent? Grand Theft Auto 5? And boarding schools. Janet's in Ashridge. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning, Iain.
Good morning, Janet. What can I do for you?
I think that you were a little too categorical in the way you said parents don't love their children who send them to boarding schools. I think you might find that some parents who love their children send them to boarding schools because their profession and their devotion to the community doesn't allow them enough time with their children during term time.
What do you mean by profession and devotion to the community? Par example.
I was a surgeon, so I was on call, did many, many hours work. My children asked at 11 to go to boarding school.
Oh, dear.
So that there was continuity.
How sad for them.
They loved it because they were weekly boarders. They came home every weekend. It meant that at the weekend we enjoyed ourselves. All the homework, all exam revision was done. And it suited my children, and it's suiting my grandchildren, because
Janet,
my children are doing the same thing very well.
It suited you. It suited you to send your children away for a week at a time.
To go away.
But at the age of 11, where did they get the idea that they would be better off?
Because they were at a
boarding
school
school.
where there were day pupils and boarders. And they thought it was much better, rather than going to school at 7:30 in the morning and sort of staying at school till 5:30 or 6 at night. It was better to be there all the time, so they were part of the continuity with everybody else.
What's this got to do? You mentioned devotion to community. I don't quite understand what that's got to do with this.
If you are going to spend many years at the government's expense training in medicine, you have an obligation to pay back the community.
No, if you go to the expense and the trouble of having children, you have a responsibility to those children above everything else, don't you?
And my responsibility was to see
Ship
that
them off.
They were taken care of in a proper manner.
No, your responsibility is for you to take care of them in a proper manner. You are their mother.
And they preferred boarding school.
At the age of 11, they're not old enough to make that decision, Janet.
Indeed they are. I now have a 9-year-old grandson at boarding school.
Oh, that's so sad.
He wanted to go because his brothers were there, and he's in the same family house with them.
I think it's so sad to have...
Doesn't mean we don't love them.
I think it's so sad to have the wonderful gift of children, and they are a gift. They are so precious. And then to say, yeah, do you know what? I don't want to spend all my time with you. I don't want to put you to bed at night. I don't want to read you stories. I don't want to cook your supper. I don't want to clean up your mess. I don't want to wipe your bottoms. I'm going to let somebody else do that. I think that's so sad.
11, you're not doing any of those things either.
You're not reading stories and cooking meals for them? You should be.
By 11, most of my grandchildren can cook my meals when they visit me.
Oh, Janet, it just sounds, no disrespect, it sounds awful.
I think you'll find we make very rounded adults.
Oh, it just sounds...
that get on very well with other people.
You make very rounded adults who think that it's appropriate to send their children away because they're caught in that cycle. One of the joys of having children is living with them and being with them and arguing with them and sending them up to their rooms and playing with them and teaching them how to ride their bikes and reading with them and watching films with them and cuddling up in bed with them. And you were denied that. I feel really sorry for you, Janet. You were denied that.
Please don't feel sorry for me.
I do, though. I do, though, and I do, because you missed out on so many wonderful things by not having your children live with you.
I think most of the things you're talking about are done before 11.
You can do all of those things with 11-year-olds. You can get into bed with your 11-year-old. You can read them stories. You can watch films with them. You can cook for them. You can do all of those things. It's a joy and it's a gift and it's a privilege watching your children grow up and being part of their lives. And you denied yourself that, Janet.
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't agree with you. I think that within a community, you have a responsibility to the community as well as your family.
No, your family come first. Your family really do come first.
Your family don't always come first.
Your children come first. I really think they do.
I'm afraid they don't always come first. You must equate what is the most important thing, and very often the community is more important, because having brought your children up properly, they are disciplined, they are rounded people and can well look after themselves when many members of the community can't.
I would strongly disagree. I would suspect a lot of people would as well, that my children come above and beyond everything.
I hope your children are very successful in life and very happy.
Well, I thank you very much. That's very kind. But again, I reiterate, my children are more important to me than anything. More important than this job. More important than other members of my family. More important than my community. Of course they're more important.
So if they're more important than your job, then how are you going to provide for them if you didn't have a job?
Well, no, I have a job. What I'm saying is, if for some reason, due to illness or whatever other reason, I had to leave this job to be with them, if I got an email now saying your kids are sick, I would be out of here now. You would hear me put the headphones down and I would walk out without a moment's hesitation.
My children will bring up Granny and say, would you deal with it, please?
OK, but supposing that situation isn't possible, you know, if I got an email saying your children are sick, you have to come home now, the last sound you would hear is me putting my headphones down, walking out of that door and that door shutting.
You are to be congratulated.
Thank you. I know.
But I don't agree with you, and I don't think...
You think a radio show's more important than the health of my kids? Wow. Janet, it's nice talking to you. Thanks very much for calling.
Bye.
Janet in Ashridge there. Seriously, this means nothing. Compared to my kids, this is nothing. If I got an email now saying your kids are ill, you've got to come home, wouldn't even question it. Headphones down, out through the door. If that meant losing my job, that would mean losing my job. I probably wouldn't. I suspect that my bosses here would be understanding enough to know that. And Kelly could jump in, or Justin would jump in, or Jonathan, or whatever. Betty's in North Crawley. Good morning, Betty.
Good morning.
Good morning, Betty. What's your take on boarding schools?
Well, I went to boarding school at the age of 8, but the circumstances were such that we had to.
What were the circumstances, if you don't mind me asking?
My father died when I was 3.
Yeah.
So my mother had 3 of us under the age of 10.
Oh, dear.
No widow's pension, no anything, no house paid for, because my father was only 34. So fortunately, he'd paid into some charity, and they educated the 3 of us, gave us clothes and everything, until I was 16. And even then, when I was 16, my mother still was a widow and trying to run a boarding house, no money.
Was it hard for her, Betty, to send her children away?
It was dreadful.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible. And she was a jolly good mother. And she loved us dearly, and we always had a lovely time when we got home.
Oh, I bet.
There's no chance. So I do think perhaps when you make your very bold, sweeping statements, circumstances do alter cases.
They do, and your circumstances are not. They are slightly outside of the norm that I was speaking of, and I can understand.
You know, I don't think that perhaps you ought to make quite such sweeping statements.
Would you have called in if I hadn't made such a sweeping statement?
I know this, that when my husband went to work abroad, we had the chance of sending our children to boarding school, and I refused.
Why did you refuse?
Because I felt the best thing was to be at home. But our circumstances as kids, we had no choice.
No, and I completely appreciate that, and it obviously is a completely different circumstance. If I hadn't made such a sweeping statement, would you have called in?
No.
You see? Betty, I appreciate your story. Thank you very much.
OK.
Betty in North Crawley. That is the exception, I think, that proves the rule. I do genuinely believe this, that my children are more important than anything. I would jump in front of a train for my kids if that was what was required. They're more important than anything. And I couldn't think of anything worse than sending them away. Isn't it funny how a throwaway comment generates all these phone calls? 08459 455 555. I can't think of anything worse than sending them away. Not putting them to bed, not giving them a bath, not cooking their supper. It's hard work, but what a job, what a job. Ellie's in Bedford. Morning, Ellie.
Good morning. I have never, ever heard such an interview in my life. What I think is the scary part is, I think things move on in generations. What really scares me is that lady is actually now bringing in another generation that's going to have the same outlook on life. If she wanted to be a part-time parent, perhaps she shouldn't have had children and she should have set up a babysitting agency. My children are 15, 18 and 19. One of them left for university last weekend and one of them is leaving for university this weekend. I'm a wreck. But I think that she's completely missing a huge point that she'll never understand because she's never experienced it.
Well, listen, Janet's not here to defend herself, so let's just go a little bit soft on Janet. Let's just spread this out a little bit more generally. Parents who do send their children away to boarding school, tell them what they're missing out on, Ellie.
They're missing out on the panic attacks they have. They're missing out on the things when they get really worried. But my point is that when my children were little, rightly or wrongly, you could put them in front of the TV with a video and they would sit there and laugh and amuse themselves. As they get older, and I'm talking specifically about 11 to 16-year-olds, emotionally, they need you far more. and no one will understand a child better than its mother.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Ellie in Bedford. 08459 455 555. Well, this is feisty, isn't it? It was a throwaway comment, but said sincerely, it wasn't said flippantly, has seemed to have got you a little bit excited. I do genuinely think if you send your kids away to boarding school, I think it's very, very sad. I think it's really sad. You're missing out on so much. Would you do it, Producer Tony? You've got kids. Could you possibly send your kids away to boarding school? You've got a grin on your face as though you'd enjoy the break.
No, I would not. I'd never send them. In fact, my son, if ever he hears a story about boarding school, he says, "Oh, Mummy, please, don't ever send me."
So he's begging you not to send him away.
He'll be listening to this now, and he doesn't like the idea of boarding school because he doesn't believe it's like Hogwarts.
No, it's not. They don't learn magic. Do you ever use it as a threat? You do that again, young man, and you are going away to boarding school.
Never, just the naughty step.
08459. She makes us stand on the naughty step here at work. I know, it's terrible. 08459 455 555. I do think if you send your kids away to boarding school, you're missing out on a lot, and there's something lacking in your relationship. How could there not be? It's 8:46. Let's get the travel news now.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Still very busy on the M25 this morning, anti-clockwise, slow into the roadworks past Enfield. Also queuing after that accident around Watford, junction 19. The accident's gone, the delay's still there. Back pretty much to the A1M at South Mimms. About half an hour to get through the delays, though, because traffic at least is moving a bit more freely. Clockwise is slow into the roadworks at South Mimms, so junction 23. A5 in Markyate, partly blocked. A two-car accident around Hicks Road. Southbound M1 slow Flitwick to Redbourne, junction 12 to 9. And from Hemel Hempstead to the M25, junction 7 to 6A. It's looking quite busy on the A414 at the London Coney roundabout, also through Hertford. Some short delays on the A602 in Hitchin, and the A507 maybe a little bit busy as well this morning. The A1 definitely looking slow along past Stevenage at junction 8, and then into London from Holiday Inn Junction to Mill Hill Circus. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. Ian, who spells his name the alternative way, has emailed in. Ian, your opinion is valid, but let's be honest. You abuse the right of having your own radio show by talking over anyone who does not agree with you. By the way, my children never went to boarding school. Well, Ian, I don't think I was talking over anyone then. I was just trying to forward the conversation ever so slightly. If you've got a problem, do call in 08459 455 555. Right, it's 8:47. It's Wednesday, the 18th of September. I am Iain Lee. These are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Alcohol charities are criticising senior police officers' calls for the introduction of so-called drunk tanks, suggesting the scheme could become little more than a cash cow. Luton police are questioning two 18-year-old men arrested in connection with last Friday's fatal stabbing in Hastings Street. In sport, Sir Bradley Wiggins takes a 33-second lead into today's fourth stage of cycling's Tour de Britain after winning yesterday's time trial by more than half a minute. Coming up, your calls on drink tanks, boarding schools and Grand Theft Auto 5. 08459 455 555. Let's get the weather now, though, with Kate Kinsella.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. We've still got a little bit of cloud around, but already it's breaking up quite nicely and we're seeing the sunshine through the thinner areas, and it's turning out to be quite a nice day. Certainly an improvement to yesterday. There's less wind, there's less rain, and we're going to see the sunshine too. So therefore it's going to feel a bit warmer. We're looking at a maximum of around 16 Celsius, 61 degrees in Fahrenheit. Now overnight, because of the clearer skies, it will get chilly very quickly. We're looking at a minimum of 6 Celsius, but towards the early hours of tomorrow morning and into dawn tomorrow, the cloud increases from the west, which may mean we get a degree or two higher as we head into Thursday morning. Cloudy start tomorrow and the rain will soon follow. Mid-morning onwards, really. Some of that quite heavy, and when it moves through, it's going to become fairly windy as well. So that continues through the afternoon. It will start to clear through the course of the evening, but feeling fairly miserable despite the temperature being the same as today, around 16 Celsius. That's 61 degrees in Fahrenheit. It looks a bit better for Friday, and it's certainly improving. More in the way of sunshine. As we head into the weekend, it looks like it's going to get a bit warmer as well. And that's your forecast.
If you've got a problem with a company, a council or an organisation...
They were really, really unhelpful. They laughed at me.
The JVS show fights for your rights and tackles your consumer problems.
We have been back 11 visits, each time because of the problems my husband's been having.
Since the beginning of June, I've had no schedule freezer.
If you need our help, email jvsshow@bbc.co.uk.
Gentleman then agreed to refund me my money. As of yet, he's resold the vehicle and still no refund.
The JVS show, weekdays from 9, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Oh, I'm enjoying this morning all of a sudden. Have you or your children or your grandchildren got their grubby little mitts on the eagerly anticipated Grand Theft Auto 5? I'm either saying those words and they mean nothing to you, or you're going, oh, flipping out on that blooming game. The video game is expected to smash sales records, shifting some 25 million copies in its first year and generating £1 billion for developer Rockstar. 25 million copies is more than an album sells these days. £1 billion is more than a movie takes these days. The Mail calls it the game that spawns violence, and they're quite, as I knew they would be. They don't like video games, the Daily Mail. They're quite condemning in their review of it. Their reporter, James Dellingpole, ends his review. The fact that this is the most popular computer game on the market should make us all shudder and pray that the violence on the screen doesn't bleed onto Britain's streets. Well, Justin Dealey has been out and about. Justin, you're not a gamer, are you?
No, not at all.
You don't like it? Do you fancy coming around for a little session of the GTA?
Tell me why I'll be interested in stealing, killing, torturing. Why would I be interested in that?
Because that's not. You won't be killing, stealing, or torturing. You'll be playing a video game.
But that's what they do in the video game.
Yeah, but you're not doing it. This is the problem. You see,
go on.
You're not doing that. You're playing a video game. It's like watching. It's like watching a movie.
But why would I want to torture somebody on a video game? Okay. You're still torturing somebody.
No, you're not torturing anybody, Justin. Maybe I'm not saying this clear enough. Let me say it in words of less than 2 syllables for you to understand. You will not be torturing anybody. You will be interacting in a video game. It's like watching a movie.
No, it's not like watching a movie, because you're watching a movie, you're watching something in front of you, you're pressing the buttons on that computer, which is making the computer screen torture somebody, correct?
Incorrect, because it's not torturing anybody. It's just a series of numbers and dots on a screen. You are not torturing a real person.
Right, OK. Well
done. No, well done. You lost the argument, so you backed away, and I appreciate that.
So
that's big of you.
Have you got the game yet?
I got sent it yesterday.
Ah, right, so you're going to be playing it later on. Well, I've been trying to find out this morning, Iain, why people like you like this game and why people don't like this game. Here's what people had to say. You're a fan, aren't you, of these games?
Yes, very big fan, yeah.
Do you think they make you more violent?
No, not at all, no.
I mean, experts are saying they could do, but you've noticed no change in your behaviour or your friends' behaviour whatsoever?
No, not yet. Not yet. Not for the ones that have played it so far.
What do you get from this, though? You know, shooting people, torturing people. What do you get from it?
I think it's just, you can't do it in real life, so...
It's the fantasy, then?
Yeah, it's the fantasy, yeah.
My nephews have already got it.
So they're that keen, then?
They're that keen, yeah.
And how old are your nephews?
One's 18, one is 15.
And the one at 15 shouldn't be playing it anyway, should he?
Shouldn't be playing it, and he's the one that's got it. It's the 18-year-old that got it for him. But I think they've been talking about it for many weeks now, that game.
I mean, are you not concerned that your 15-year-old nephew will be playing this game, which features scenes of graphic violence and torture?
Yep. I mean, I hope he's not influenced by the game. But I am worried. I was surprised when he showed me the picture, he's got it, so...
Charlie, you're 18, so legally you can play Grand Theft Auto. Have you rushed out to buy the new game yet?
I just got it yesterday after work.
So you've already got it?
Yeah.
Is it too violent?
It is definitely an 18-plus game, yeah.
Zach, you don't play Grand Theft Auto. Can you tell me why?
Too much killing and not really any real story behind the game. It's just kind of do this and do that.
And what about friends of yours? Are they obsessed by this game?
A few of my friends did go out at midnight to purchase the game, and I don't think they've been into work since.
James, you've got 2 children.
Yeah.
Would you let them play Grand Theft Auto?
No.
And these parents that are buying these games for their children, knowing they're underage, do you think they're just naive?
I think some are naive, but I think some of it is basically pressure, because I know there's children that... I've spoken to parents myself whose children are actually badgering them to get this game.
You seen the film Scarface, Justin, with Al Pacino?
No, I haven't, no.
You seen The Godfather?
Yes, I have, a long time ago.
It's quite violent, isn't it?
It's very violent, yes.
Did it make you go out and be more violent?
No, it didn't.
Because you are a rational, thinking human being.
But I'm just saying that sometimes an influence... you'd be shocked this morning, Ian, the amount of 14-year-old children that I've spoken to who have already got this game because their parents have gone out to buy it for them.
That is
You've got
bad.
to be 18 to play the game.
No, you haven't. You've got to be 18 to buy the game. You don't have to be 18 to play the game.
Is that right?
That's correct. But yes, that is bad parenting. Definitely, I couldn't disagree with that. Have you found anybody this morning whose behaviour has been affected?
Well, yes, somebody's friend. This is very, very interesting. This is Jig. Just take a quick listen to this. Jig, you're into these games as well. Sell it to me. What's so good about Grand Theft Auto?
I think people like it simply because you can just do whatever you want. You can just steal a car and not face so much consequences.
So the game takes you away from reality?
Yeah. It takes you into a place where you can just do whatever pleases you.
And the people that you've seen playing this game, have they changed as a person since they've been playing games like that?
Yeah, some people I know have changed completely, and not for the better either.
Can you tell us what you mean by that?
I knew a guy that was... me and him were close, and then one day he's like, I'm just going to go steal a car. Do you want to come with me? I was like, nah, I'm okay. He got caught, yeah.
And that was based purely on the video game?
Yeah.
So the experts that are saying this can have an influence, based on your experience with your friends, that's absolutely true.
It is, yeah.
Right, so there's a bloke called Jig who's his mate played Grand Theft Auto, then he said one day I'm going to go and steal a car, and he did.
Yeah, based on the computer game, as he said.
Well, as Jig said, what evidence do we have that young man stole a car based on a computer game? Justin, come on, you're one of my favourite reporters. Where's the evidence here?
Well, I'm only going on what he said to me. He said that since he started playing these video games, his close friend, his behaviour has changed, and he went out to steal a car because the video game you're talking about, that is not reality. That is fantasy.
Correct.
He took that fantasy out onto the streets when it became reality.
I assumed you asked questions as well about the young man's mental health, about other things going on in his life, about possible drug use, about breakdown in family, things like that, to get the whole
I'm only going
picture.
on what he's saying to me. He said to me the video game had an influence on his behaviour which made him go out and steal a car, and he got caught. That's what he said.
Mark Chapman shot John Lennon I think 5 times. I think he fired 6. I think only 5 of the bullets went into him after he'd read the book Catcher in the Rye. Should we ban books?
Look, with this video game, it is controversial, and I think, it depends on what sort of person you are. Clearly, you play the game, it doesn't have an influence on you, but if you're talking about young teenagers who are, mixed up at the best of times, and I was certainly a bit strange when I was growing up, I think a game like this could have a major influence, and experts are talking about it. Not all the experts can be wrong, can they?
We should bring back Jet Set Willy and get the kids playing Manic Miner. That's what they need.
Come on, you've got to admit, would you want if your children were 14 years old, would you want them playing this game?
No, I wouldn't let them.
18?
Yeah, 18. They're adults. They can do what they want. Probably 17, possibly 16. I'd let them have a go without my wife knowing. But
but you're saying to me there's nothing wrong with this game, but you wouldn't want your children playing it.
No, because it's not designed for children. It's an adult game. It's adult themed. I wouldn't let my 14-year-old son watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, although he'd probably sneak off and watch it somewhere else. I wouldn't let him watch. It's an adult themed game in the same way that
saying that. But you could say alcohol's for adults. How many young kids drink alcohol? How many young kids smoke? How many young kids play these video games? They're always going to get their hands on it.
Well, of course they are. What are you saying then, Justin? That we should ban alcohol? I'm confused.
I'm not saying we should ban alcohol. I'm just saying that a lot of people that have made comment on this particular game would say that it is too violent, and that's even 18-year-olds.
But I'm a grown man. If I want to play a violent video game in the privacy of my own home, I should be allowed to, shouldn't I?
But we're not talking about 40-year-old men. We're talking about young kids that could be influenced by a computer game.
I've got an idea, Justin, and this will solve everything.
Go on.
Let's ban young kids. Do you think?
No, I don't think we should ban young kids.
I was offering you an olive branch there. You can stick that... Anyway, Justin, lovely to talk to you.
And you.
See you later. Ta-ta. Oh, look, proper argument there between myself and Mr. Dealey. He was getting angry. This is going to continue in the office, I guarantee it. As long as he brings a coffee with him.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
M25 anti-clockwise, still queuing for about 3 miles back with all the M11 at junction 27s. It's very slow coming from Essex through toward the roadworks at Enfield. Also the queues after the accident at Watford a bit earlier. The accident's gone. The delays remain back as far as the A1M at junction 23. It's taking roughly half an hour to get through because traffic is moving a bit better. Clockwise slow now into the works as well, again past Enfield. A5 Markyate, we've had reports that it's partly blocked by a 2-car accident through the morning. It's still looking very, very slow near Hicks Road. It's affecting traffic mainly heading in toward Dunstable, but southbound traffic is being affected as well. The M1 southbound slow Flitwick to Redbourne and Hemel Hempstead to the M25. A1M still looking busy past Stevenage at junction 8 and 7. If you're travelling by train or by tube this morning, your journey should be a little more clear. No problems or delays on those departure boards. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Adam. I enjoyed that little feist with Justin Deere. We should do that more often. That's enjoyable. Don't forget you can download the podcast from iTunes or the BBC Three Counties website, the best bits of the show. I'm back tomorrow at 6. Until then, from me, ta-ta. Tim's up next.
Local and vocal across Beds, Herts and Bucks.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Yes, thank you very much, Ian. Good morning. You're listening to the JVS show. I'm Tim Wheeler, standing in for Jonathan. At 9 o'clock, it's the big phone-in, and